Section 2, suit leak check preparation.
And a look at their signatures from yesterday.
Copy. Go for
When they
Section
signed
2.
it, I see Oleg's.
Yeah. It is unique.
As the astronauts are seated into their positions here inside Crew-11 and the spacecraft Endeavour, we want to revisit your missions, all three of them, Nick, that you participated in. And we have some photos to kind of take us through that. This is something that the astronauts think about all the time. All of you think about when you get ready to launch. You never know what's going to happen. And that was the case on this day in 2018 when you launched from Kazakhstan.
Yeah, so we were at the Baikonur Cosmodrome, launching on MS-10.
Dragon care complete. Ready for leak check.
Copy, Dragon. You have a go for Section 3, suit leak check.
Go Section 3, suit leak check.
Yet another check of the suits to make sure that they're working. They're important equipment. This picture is taken as we're getting ready to go up the launch tower to get on the elevator to ride to the top of the Soyuz rocket. And yeah, you know, our preparation is focused. 95% of our training is training for what to do when things go wrong, hoping that you're not going to ever need to use that training. Training for everything to go right is actually pretty boring training. And so this is an instance of, you know, you don't know what life is going to throw at you, and definitely on the first launch, we had a curveball. It was a beautiful day, not unlike today. You know, a fall day launching off the same launch pad that Yuri Gagarin launched off of, and 2 minutes into the flight, that's when staging occurs for the Soyuz, and for the Soyuz rocket, the little external boosters on the lower half of the rocket are empty at that point, and then they gently separate and then propel themselves away. But on that day, one of them failed to propel itself away. And when you're 30 miles up going 4,000 miles an hour, the slipstream of the wind is strong enough that it forced that empty tank to impale the center of the rocket, and it disintegrated. In that instant, because everything happens fast when you're going that fast, the launch escape system pulled us to safety. And so this is a still shot of that moment. You know, it was kind of a violent side-to-side shaking. The alarm is sounding. You can hear it. You can see the alarm flashing in front of you. There's a light that comes on the console that, you know, says rocket emergency, and then you spend a second or so trying to figure out exactly what happens as you're slowly tumbling, continuing to coast toward space because we were going so fast. And so we coast all the way up out of that debris field up to about 90 kilometers.
You made it to space.
Yeah, depending on who you ask.
Okay.
Though
was it 62 miles is the Kármán line? I don't know what the conversion is for the kilometers.
Yeah, so they use 100 kilometers is the international standard. The military uses 50 miles. That leaves this gray area, and as far as I'm concerned, I walked away alive, so that it didn't matter.
Amen.
And so that launch escape system automatically sensed that there was something wrong, and pulled us to safety. And you know, so we landed. The flight was 20 minutes. Pararescue forces were there to pull us out, and within 6 hours we were coming down at the airport, walking off the jet, able to embrace family. And you can see I'm giving Katie a hug, and
That's your wife?
that's my wife, and Alexei's there with his wife Svetlana, and our extended family is all there as well, and it's that sense of disappointment that it didn't work out, but also that sense of
Dragon, 4 good, we've checked.
Copy, Dragon. We see the same. Closeout team will perform final closeout steps and exit the capsule. You can proceed to Section 4, side hatch close, and report when ready to close the hatch.
In Section 4 and will go.
That's excellent news.
Yes.
Good suits. And, but at the end of the day, that's what it's about. Regardless of whether it's a successful abort or a successful mission, at the end of the day, it's about getting back to family.
And you did that day. The launch escape system worked as it was supposed to, and it brought you back to your family along with your cosmonauts, who was your fellow crew member, to his family as well. And that's why you train the way you do, is for moments like that. And it underscores the importance of safety, because this is a risky endeavor.
It is. It is. And, the crew members take that risk. The families take that risk right there with them. That's why we train. That's, we talked about the...
SpaceX Dragon, crew are ready for side hatch closure.
Copy, crew ready for side hatch closure.
We talked about that before, that international aspect training as a crew, during the abort, Alexei and I didn't have to communicate directly to each other.
Dragon, SpaceX, comm check.
SpaceX Dragon, loud and clear.
Core, loud and clear. Dietrich's comm check is complete. Stand by for comm checks with DC, MD, and LD in the launch configuration.
All right, we have a long series of comm checks that we'll listen into here.
Dragon, DC on countdown 1, comm check.
DC Dragon, loud and clear.
DC loud and clear. Stand by for comm checks with MD.
Dragon, MD on countdown 1, comm check.
MD Dragon, loud and clear.
MD has you loud and clear. Stand by for comm check over Dragon to ground. Dragon, MD on Dragon to ground, comm check.
MD Dragon, loud and clear.
And I've got you the same. Stand by for comm checks with LD.
Dragon, LD on countdown 1 with a comm check.
LD Dragon, loud and clear.
LD loud and clear. Stand by for comm check over Dragon to ground. Dragon, LD on Dragon to ground with a comm check.
LD Dragon, loud and clear.
LD loud and clear.
Dragon, SpaceX, launch configuration comm checks are complete.
All right, we're through those comm checks, which we got to be able to check the path through the ground, through the air, and they all sound good. Back to what we were talking about as we continue now to your next mission, which is MS-12, and that is, this was just 5 months later, you went to fly again, and we should mention that part of that decision to fly again and jump right back in on a Soyuz rocket is just how successful the Soyuz program has been. You had no problem getting right back on that spacecraft and that rocket and launching into space, because that is a highly reliable spacecraft, has been for a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. And what we do this whole idea of being launched into space is predicated on the trust and faith in the teams that are creating that reliability, into the engineering that goes into the system, into every little detail, and all the redundancies in the design, so that when there is something that occurs, the backup's there. And so the launch escape system that rescued us on that day hadn't been used before, but it worked when it was needed, and that's so symbolic of the space program. There are so many things that are in place, and when they're called into action, they work because of the dedication from every person on this gigantic global team. And so you're ready to get back into it. And so 5 months later, it's Alexei and I, plus Christina, who is getting ready to go up for a year-long mission, and we had a beautiful, pristine launch to the International Space Station. Nighttime launch this time, though. So, when you get a twofer, it's nice to get a day launch and a nighttime launch. But and there was so much buildup in terms of getting to the space station, but the real mission is on the space station. It's doing the science. It's the 200 plus days that follow the 6 hours getting there, that you're up there doing scientific research and keeping the laboratory running and upgrading its capabilities. That's why we launch. The launch is thrilling, and it's an exciting part of the mission, but it isn't the mission.
Well said, Dick. And you returned home from a successful mission aboard the International Space Station, and you can certainly tell that you were in space for a while.
Yeah, I mean, you guys picked a great photo of me with a grimace on my face. You couldn't find anything better. I actually had an amazing time up there.
Yeah.
But when you come back, gravity is painful.
Yeah.
And
the
adjustment back, you haven't had to lift anything for 7 months, and then you come back, and so the first few days of readaptation are challenging.
What are you saying there? Ooh, 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 don't, no.
Don't drop me, please. No, it's great, and like I said, you're home, and there's this huge sense of accomplishment and relief.
Well, they're removing the protective cover around the seal that leads into Dragon Endeavour. That's to prevent any FOD from getting on it, but they will now take pictures and document exactly how it looks before they seal it shut, put a nice bright light on it, and go around and do that inspection.
It's always amazing to me that how little FOD, this debris that can cause a leak in the seal, and the seal is just a piece of rubber that's going to press up against a piece of metal, and something like dust or a hair is enough to create a leak path that it's going to fail the leak check. And that's really important, because this hatch is going to stay closed for the next 6+ months and protect the capsule and the crew from the vacuum of space, from all the air inside the capsule leaking out into space.
You mentioned the 6-month baseline for Crew-11. That is currently the minimum amount of time they will spend on station. However, the commercial crew program is reviewing data along with SpaceX to certify Dragon for an 8-month stay. They're going to go ahead and let them launch, and then that certification is expected to happen sometime. Saying, oh no, I get to stay longer?
Every day in space is a treat. It's a gift. It's just such a spectacular experience, and it doesn't get old. So at the end of 180 days, this last mission I did was 171 days. The one before it was 203. You're still sad to leave at the end. It's mixed emotions, but it's every day up there is a gift.
I got a little sad when you left yesterday.
stuck in tight quarters with me for 6 hours.
Got so used to you after 6 hours of being here, saying all these wonderful things about space, and then I got in my truck and Nick's gone. Good thing we scrubbed, because I'll see him again tomorrow.
Well, thank you. I'll take that as a compliment.
Absolutely. It's been an absolute pleasure and an honor listening to you tell these stories. And we have one last one. We want to talk about the most recent mission, of course, Crew-9. And this was, just last year. So you had a bit of a
it hasn't
break
even been a year since I launched.
No,
yeah,
right. I mean, you're still pretty fresh from space, Nick.
Yeah, it's you can see Alex and I. It looks a little more spacious in there when there's only 2 people.
Sure does.
Yeah, but at the end of September, in July, the decision was made to switch to a 2-person crew so that we could create open seats there for Butch Wilmore and Sonny Williams to come back with Alex and I. Their Starliner had some issues, and so they, NASA decided to bring it back uncrewed, and so Butch and Sonny, they made the decision to have them join our crew and rotational mission to go up there and do a 6-month full-length, long-duration mission. And so Alex and I launched, and priority 1, beautiful launch. Ours was kind of the exact opposite of what we had yesterday.
I know.
Where it was, the weather was trash all day long, except for the 30 minutes right before launch. And so we launched into this beautiful hole in the sky. And yesterday was just the exact opposite. The priority was, let's get to space and let's integrate Butch and Sonny into the Crew-9 crew. And so you can see us there in the capsule together. Butch is in the far field. Sonny's just off the camera in the near field. And from, day 2 on the station, we were Crew-9 there for our 6 months of scientific research. And that is the mission, is to go up there and do that research and maintain the station and, continue to discover. And then we were able to, get everybody back home safe, which in the end, that's again what it's about. It's about getting back to the family and giving them a hug.
And that was such a high-profile mission, Nick. It was very much in the spotlight. Even, when I talk to people who know I work at NASA, they say, "Oh, what about those 2 astronauts that got stuck up at station?" It's like, that was stuck was the word, but just did not.
Stuck got stuck.
Yeah, right, it did. Stuck. But they transitioned. NASA made a decision, and immediately they became test flight, crew members into regular increment mission specialists. And they just made the pivot. They worked on station. They worked alongside you. They were a part of Crew-9.
Yeah.
And you brought them home on Dragon. And, it was really making the best of a situation, a decision that was made, to get full use of their time being, having expended the energy, the effort, the money to get them up on station. Yeah. Hey, let's put them to work.
Yeah, and yesterday and today, the
Dragon
theme.
SpaceX, the closeout team is taking final steps in preparation for side hatch closure. Stand by for hatch closure, and then transition to pad hatch closed. Ensure all items are secure from now through launch.
Dragon copy from Wilco.
Last waves goodbye to the pad team, and
there they are.
Shut that hatch.
And the closeout crew closes the hatch to Dragon Endeavour, sealing the astronauts inside for their journey to the International Space Station. What you were saying?
Well, the theme is, if there's a theme, I think you hear it echoed in Zena's words that we've played today, and as in our discussion yesterday, you've heard the same thing in Mike and Kimia and Oleg's words. It's not, space exploration is not about individuals. It's about the mission. And this risky endeavor that we take part in, we don't do it because of the thrill, we do it because of the mission. And so the Crew-9 mission is just another mission in this long legacy of the 25 years of the space station operations, and making that happen, doing the scientific discovery and research up there. So yeah, we brought Butch and Sonny into Crew-9, and it's a testament to their competency and professionalism. From day one, they were all in and able to operate as full-up crew members.
You worked alongside them every single day of that mission, of that 7-month mission.
Absolutely. And they are amazing crewmates, and everything the ground threw at us, we were able to do. And that's also a huge testament to the teams that prep us to get ready to fly. I talked about the 95% of the time we're training for things that we don't expect to happen, but just in case. And they had done training just in case they got stretched. They had done spacewalk training, they had done robotics training, they had done the things that they needed to do just in case this thing we don't think is ever going to happen might happen. And that's what we do every day, is we prepare for that. And so that's we talk about a professional astronaut corps. That's what a professional astronaut corps prepares to do. But that demands that we have this team that helps us get there. And so those are the rock stars behind this whole story, is this team of trainers that had the foresight and the imagination to come up with the things that they think we might need, and they got them ready, and we were able to adapt and overcome the challenges that were thrown at us.
And you and your team adapted extremely well. It was a successful mission. We saw the last photo of you guys coming back down. And here you are today, co-hosting our launch broadcast to see Crew-11 into space. If you're just now joining us, you're watching live coverage from NASA and SpaceX of Crew-11's launch to the International Space Station. T0 is 11:43 a.m. Eastern Time. We have a little more than 2 hours before we lift off. Weather is 60% go. We're keeping a close eye on the winds and the convective activity we expect around that time, but the hope is that we'll have a nice spot to launch through into the sky and on into space. You mentioned all the work that you did when you were on Crew-9, and of course a lot of that focuses around research on the ISS. The International Space Station is one of the most extraordinary labs that has ever been built, and it's the final destination, of course, for Crew-11. Let's take a closer look now at the science happening up there in low Earth orbit and how it's improving life for all of us down here on Earth.
The International Space Station isn't just a symbol. It's a powerhouse of cutting-edge science, constantly revealing secrets that defy Earth's limitations and drive us farther into the cosmos.
Our mission is research and science. We have experiments mounted on the outside of the station that are looking at Earth. We study our own bodies and how they react to space, to weightlessness, to radiation. And that helps not only us go on further in future missions, but also helps for medical research back home. And then we study lots of different things as well, like materials, combustion, all sorts of things that help us understand life back on Earth.
Yeah!
Microgravity doesn't play by the rules. It flips them upside down, transforming how liquids flow, how flames burn, and unraveling biological mysteries before our eyes.
I saw some heart tissues beating in space, and it was incredible.
So Tom, we see that top one beating. Looks like happy heart cells.
But we're not just along for the ride. We're explorers, diving headfirst into the challenge and harnessing the power of this unparalleled platform, just as we have been for decades. We're on a relentless quest for answers, seeking to understand the intricate workings of the human body in space and ensuring future crews stay safe on their daring journeys beyond Earth's orbit.
The human aspect of human space exploration is always going to be very important for decades to come.
And when it comes to technology, we're not waiting around. We're discovering new ways to grow crops in harsh environments and engineering innovations to tackle Earth's greatest challenges.
We have amazing technology that allows us to recycle water and create water for us to drink. It's delicious.
Microgravity isn't just a curiosity, it's a game changer in the fight against diseases back on Earth, paving the way for breakthroughs that benefit us all and enabling new economic opportunities in space.
Welcome Axiom 3 on board the International Space Station.
From our vantage point more than 200 miles above Earth, we are not just spectators. We're gaining unprecedented insights into the world we call home, and we're sharing our findings openly. We're not just achieving results today, we're sparking inspiration in future generations of explorers and embracing the power of global collaboration as we reach for the stars.
What was your favorite experiment on the International Space Station?
Toby, great question. My favorite experiment was the one that I got to eat. It was us growing hatch chili peppers in our plant habitat.
Station Huntsville on 2, we have video in Node 1. Look at those chili peppers.
And as we soar through space at 17,500 miles per hour, each moment is a step closer to unlocking the mysteries of our Earth, our universe, and propelling our pioneering spirit even farther into space. So come along for the ride aboard the International Space Station.
The beauty of the International Space Station and all the science that's happening aboard.
Yeah, that's it. Why are we there? It's science. It's science in the space environment and in the radiation environment. It's science in microgravity, where you can float without end, and you can't do that anywhere else.
Well, as you can see from this shot, looking skyward, up past the Falcon 9 rocket and Endeavour spacecraft, our astronauts are aboard. They are strapped in. They've had suit leak checks. They've had comm checks. And we're starting to get a few little clouds in the sky. That's expected. It's warm here in Florida on this first day of August. And it's also very humid, even more humid than it was yesterday. As you can see, the puffy cumulus clouds are accumulating a little earlier today. While we have this moment where we have a natural pause in the action, let's take a look at our crew today and introduce you to the entire team. They are led by Crew-11 Commander, NASA astronaut Zena Cardman. She holds a Master of Science in Marine Sciences from UNC Chapel Hill. Cardman has experience with NASA research in the Canadian High Arctic and has supported real-time station operations and lunar surface exploration planning. She also likes rock climbing and powerlifting in her free time. And you trained with her for over a year.
Yeah, almost 18 months. She's a a person of many talents. But most importantly, she's got an infectious personality. Her positivity and she's just a fun person to hang out with.
It does. It radiates from her.
It does. Yep.
You know?
Yep. And that's, if you're going to be in a capsule for 15 hours or 20 hours or 40 hours, or you're going to be in a station in close proximity to somebody for 6 months or more, you want somebody that you enjoy hanging out with.
And I certainly enjoyed our time together when she co-hosted our launch broadcast for Crew-9, when we watched you, Nick, go up into space. Michael Fink is our pilot and funny man. Only, according to him, the only second funniest crew member aboard. He is a veteran of 3 space flights. Fink has completed 9 spacewalks, totaling 48 hours and 37 minutes of EVA time. He spent 382 days in space. Fink is a certified pilot for Boeing Starliner and SpaceX Crew Dragon, as well as a co-pilot, flight engineer on Soyuz, and a mission specialist on the Space Shuttle. Fink enjoys spending time with his family, traveling, geology, and learning new languages.
Equally, somebody that's enjoyable to hang out with.
That's true.
It's, you can say that about all of this crew. Just
Dragon
great
SpaceX,
people.
we had a good side hatch leak check.
Dragon copies. Good leak check. Great news.
That is great news.
That is. And so that means that the crew is sealed up inside, safe from the hostile environment of space once this Dragon spacecraft gets into
Dragon SpaceX,
gets into orbit.
We are commencing health check for a launch escape system. Expect momentary flight computer state change, followed by a transition back to pad hatch closed.
Dragon copies. We'll monitor the flight computer state changes.
Now, this is an important milestone to check the health of the launch escape system.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're doing it well in advance of when we would turn on the launch escape system and activate it at about the T-minus 45 point before you start to add your propellant and your oxidizer to the rocket. You want to do that early, so if there is any issues you need to troubleshoot, you've got time to do it. So this is the early checkout of that system.
Let's introduce you to our mission specialist now. Kimiya Yui is the JAXA astronaut on board. He's Crew-11's mission specialist, and with 142 days in space, this will be Yui's second trip to the space station. Yui flew as a flight engineer for Expedition 4445 and became the first Japanese astronaut to capture JAXA's H-2 transfer vehicle. In November of 2016, Yui was assigned as chief of the JAXA astronaut group.
Yeah, when you think about his history, capturing the H-2, the HTV, it'd be pretty spectacular if he could capture HTVX as it comes up.
Absolutely, and that's the plan. So if HTVX, which is Japan's newest vehicle, which is going to start docking with the space station, if it all works out, JAXA is really hoping that he'll be at the helm of the the Canadian arm, which will grapple the spacecraft and bring it in to space station.
That'd be fabulous. The international aspects of the space station can't be, you can't overstate the importance of it. It's just the way we're able to collaborate and cooperate together, using the Canada arm to grab a JAXA vehicle.
Dragon
and
SpaceX for
spectacular how we work together.
Both Dragon and Falcon 9 are healthy, and we are looking good for the count. The main watch item is going to be what we briefed you in the weather briefing earlier today, which is the probability of violation at 40% due to weather at the launch site. That is the same as the weather briefing, but we are going to keep an eye on that as the count progresses.
Copy. Healthy Dragon, healthy Falcon. Our watch item is weather, which, as briefed, is 40% chance of violation. We'll be monitoring. Crew will be ready to go.
And lastly, the Crew-11 mission specialist, Roscosmos cosmonaut Oleg Platonov. This will be his first trip to the International Space Station. He graduated from the Krasnodar Higher Military Aviation School of Pilots with a degree in engineering and military rank of lieutenant. He is married with one child, and he is taking a toy from that child. Who the child is good with
that
it.
sounded terrible.
It doesn't. He has taken his children's toys, but he's taken it into space. If we
Here, I'm going to take your favorite toy away from you.
Is this your favorite? Okay.
No, and that's one of the cool things that we're allowed to do is take little mementos that we can take that remind us of our friends and family. And loved ones, and then we, at the end of the day, we get to bring that back to them, and then his child's going to be able to hold that dear the rest of their life.
It really has to be special. I have a young son, and I look at his toys with nostalgia. Right, I see him play with them. I see how much they mean to him, and then to add that additional sentimentality to it that's just cool. And, his kid will, I'm sure, see some video clip in some way of that toy floating around, right?
Yeah,
so
it makes it more tangible.
Right?
That, I held it in my hands, and now I see it in space. And somehow that draws your I did the same thing with my kids. It draws them closer to that experience. Yeah. So the vehicle's clean, everything is tracking well, and we're waiting on a weather update. I propose we focus on the 60% go as opposed to the 40% probability of violation. It seems more glass half full to me.
It does, doesn't it? And we that's what we put on our graphic. We put the go. Officially, it's given to us in a POV.
And I understand that. Statistics are the way they are for a reason.
That's right.
But
Nick is
positive thoughts
he
today.
Is doing his best with the positivity here, and I appreciate it greatly. Okay, so we have a confirmed hatch closure. And so we'll start to see the closeout crew wrap up operations there in the White Room. And all of this is well ahead of schedule. So that's a good thing. They got plenty of margin if they need it.
Absolutely. Margin's a good thing to have.
How about some more social questions?
I love it. Let's do it.
Yeah, keep them coming, folks. You can do it with hashtag AskNASA through the various platforms, Facebook, X, YouTube, and Twitch. Our next question. Abigail C3 asks, are there any space, quote, pioneers that have inspired Nick during his career or leading up to it? Did you have mentors at NASA? Well, let's take the first half of that question and talk about the pioneers.
Yeah, pioneers. I read lots of biographies, autobiographies as I was growing up of, the Apollo generation, the early space program. I was fortunate enough on my first space flight, actually before that, after I'd been selected at NASA, every couple years we have a reunion where all the current astronauts, former astronauts gather together, and I got to meet Michael Collins, and he is somebody that I had always looked up to, and it just, if you read his book or you just read his history, for me he was the epitome of we said it earlier today, it's not about the individual. You do the job that the mission requires you to do, and to be part of the crew that landed on the moon, that first landed on the moon, but be the only member that, hey, your job is so important. We need you to stay off of the moon to make sure that we can get them back home safely, and you do what it takes, and that's what we ask of everybody that joins the astronaut corps is we're going to need you to do what the mission requires. And that's an example that sticks in my mind. And during my first flight, he came to mission control, and I was able to actually do a downlink and chat with him.
Oh, wow.
So it was a full circle moment, and something I'll never forget.
Michael Collins, of course, was part of Apollo 11, which launched in 1969 and helped land the first man on the moon for the United States. But as you mentioned, he was called at times the loneliest man in the world, because it was his job to stay back in the capsule while Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin descended down to the surface of the moon and got the white-hot attention of the entire world when they walked on the moon. And there was Michael Collins, steady, waiting for them to get back.
Taking care
by
of
himself.
the ship. Taking care of the ship, making sure that he was ready to receive them when they came back.
And then what about now, if you can share? Do you have any mentors?
Well, the astronaut office is such a close group. You get to interact with so many people. So, I can point to today's crew. So Spanky's been part of the office since I showed up. And
this is Mike Fink.
Yeah, and he has, been there as kind of this force helping shape the commercial crew program. And, just being able to watch that. And we have a similar background. I was a Air Force flight test engineer before I transferred over to the Space Force a few years ago. And he was an Air Force flight test engineer. And so we had a similar military background. And so there's lots of those touch points inside the astronaut corps. And so we work together to make each other better.
Such tremendous experience just within the astronaut corps. It's a great point, Nick. You've got highly experienced veterans who have flown on space shuttle, and you have the new generation of astronauts who are flying on the commercial vehicles.
Yeah.
So it spans the gamut.
It does. It does. Well, Expedition 72. My U.S. crew members up there were Butch Wilmore, Sonny Williams, and Don Pettit. So by comparison, I was the rookie. But I had, previously done 3 spacewalks and been up there 200+ days.
Right.
I was still the rookie. So there's lots of experience inside the astronaut corps, and part of that is making sure that experience gets shared down. So it's exciting to watch Xena and Oleg launch on their first missions to start to accumulate some of that experience. It's it's a passing of the baton.
Really enjoying your insight and your experience as you talk about it, Nick. Astronaut Nick Hague here with us, commander of Crew-9, also flew on Soyuz. We are T-minus 1 hour and 49 minutes and counting until the liftoff of NASA's SpaceX Crew-11 mission. We have 2 astronauts and 1 cosmonaut inside of the Dragon Endeavour atop the Falcon 9 rocket from Launch Pad 39A at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. Of course, they are headed to the International Space Station to help maintain the orbiting lab. Once on board the International Space Station, Crew-11, as you see there, will become members of Expedition 7374. They will conduct research to develop the production of nutrients in space, such as vitamins, They will also evaluate mass-producing human-induced pluripotent stem cells, or iPSCs, to develop cell-based therapies for diseases such as cancer, also as a possible alternative to antibiotics. Crew-11 will test phage therapy to treat bacterial infections. So Nick and I are standing by now as we are listening in to a weather brief. So please stand by. Again, we are standing by as we're listening to a weather brief from Launch Weather Officer James Tager to SpaceX's Launch Director. Please stand by. Okay. All right, so we have been listening to a weather brief. This was off air, by the way, but Nick and I listening to Launch Weather Officer James Tager give an update to Launch Director for SpaceX on the weather. This is something that they had set up a few hours ago to do one at the T-minus 2 hour mark. And so here we are, and we have the update. And basically what they said was, it is a sit, watch, and wait situation. We do have increased moisture in the atmosphere. You can certainly see that in the picture in the lower right hand of your screen. cumulus clouds, light ones building in the area. The question is, when these sea breeze storms and clouds develop, they are going to develop inland, which that launch pad that you see right there is literally 500 feet from the beach. So it's all the way as close as you can get to the water, right there at the Atlantic Ocean. But you see two things here in the weather. You see some low, thin, puffy cumulus starting to, be created in the area, starting to develop. And then you see those high cirrus clouds. Those high clouds are drier in nature. You want to see those. They are moving over the area. They look at those as a sign of good things, potentially to kind of mitigate against the increase in moisture. But overall, when the launch weather officer was asked where he would put the current POV updated to the second right now, he left it at 40% probability of violation, which puts us at a 60% go. That has been the go forecast since we began our launch broadcast this morning. You see there in that shot a line of cumulus clouds, nice little clouds there. The scale, the angle of this kind of throws you off because it makes it look like it's out in front of it, but those clouds are more over towards the land side. So we will see what happens with our sea breeze. We're watching it closely. We're also watching the weather along the Ascent corridor. Showers are moving through that area at this moment. We also need to have good conditions there. This is where the Dragon could potentially splash down. But what's good about the showers there, Nick, is that they are expected to clear that area in an hour or so. So hoping for a good Ascent corridor. And then, of course, you have the abort zones. If they were to get to orbit, that they would later splash down to. They are monitoring those as well. So essentially, more watching, more waiting. We've got a crew that's ready to go. And we've got weather that's just a watch item and continues to be at this moment.
Yeah. No, it's actually, for me, it's fun to listen to that back channel conversation, back and forth between, the weather office over at the 45th Space Launch Delta and SpaceX, because you get to hear the depth of analysis that's going into, making sure that every step of the way the weather is going to be good enough for the crew, and so things are continuing to go. We're still 60% go. I'm staying positive, and it's great.
Well, we got really close yesterday at 12:09 p.m. Eastern Time. We were just a minute away. And so today we'll be at 11:43 a.m. Eastern Time. So if everything tracks as it did yesterday, then we should be good to go. How about that for some positivity from your co-host?
I love it.
Okay. All right. T-minus 1 hour and 40 minutes and counting. Let's take you now inside Mission Control in Houston, where flight controllers are constantly monitoring the International Space Station and the people living aboard. NASA's Sandra Jones is live there at Johnson Space Center. Sandra, good morning.
Hey, good morning, and thank you, Daryl. As you said, this is Mission Control Houston in the International Space Station Flight Control Room here at the Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas. The team is continuing to prepare for launch today and is being led by Flight Director Anthony Varia. Today, we will be hopefully launching the 11th rotational crew mission to the International Space Station under the agency's Commercial Crew Program. Following Crew-11's arrival, the space station will have a total of 11 crew members representing 3 different agencies aboard for just a few days. Once on board, Crew-11 will go over handover procedures with the off-going Crew-10, including a safety briefing and orientation, and then the new crew will jump right in to help advance scientific knowledge and demonstrate new technologies. After a few days of handover activities, the members of Crew-10 will prepare for their undocking and return to Earth. Direct handovers between crews allow for continuity of the activities and helps to ensure a continuous U.S. presence on the International Space Station, which is about to celebrate 25 years of continuous human presence in November. Ahead of Crew-10's return, JAXA astronaut Takuya Onishi will turn over command of the International Space Station to Roscosmos cosmonaut Sergei Ryzhikov. The space station is currently in Expedition 73. And here is a look at that mission patch on your screen. In the fall, NASA astronaut Chris Williams and Roscosmos cosmonaut Sergei Kutsverchkin and Sergei Mikheyev will join the on-orbit crew. Shortly after the departure of the Soyuz MS-27 with NASA astronaut Johnny Kim coming home will mark the commencement of Expedition 74, which will be led by the new commander, NASA astronaut Mike Fink. All this, of course, coming up after today's launch. We will continue with the countdown, and with under 2 hours before launch, we'll send it back over to Kennedy.
All right, thank you, Sandra Jones. Back here at Kennedy Space Center, you're looking up at the Falcon 9 rocket and Dragon Endeavour with Crew-11 inside the spacecraft at the very top. This is Launch Complex 39A here at the Kennedy Space Center, a historic launch pad where launches to the moon have happened, as well as the long and very successful Space Shuttle program. We've documented the astronauts' path and crew members' path to the pad today, starting at T-minus 4 hours and 10 minutes. We saw them through suit up, all 4 crew members getting into their spacesuits. They checked them for leaks and then had them head out the door to their waiting vehicles. 3 Teslas parked outside astronaut crew quarters. They jumped inside and under security escort made a 20-minute drive across the Kennedy Space Center to this location that you see here, Launch Complex 39A. Once inside their spacecraft, they performed umbilical checks, they did communication checks, and they pressurized their suits a second time to make sure they are good to go for launch. The closeout crew sealed the door, the side hatch, which is used to enter the spacecraft as well as leave it. They sealed it up for the final time before going into space. And now we are marching to our next few milestones. We have some margin in the schedule now, so a little time for the astronauts to, as Nick was telling us yesterday, do some reflection, chat amongst themselves. And there was a phrase that you used as well yesterday, chair fly.
Yeah, aviation term.
Yeah.
To, sit there and visualize what you have to do and go through the motions mentally of everything that's going to come down the road. And so chair flying the launch sequence and everything that you're going to have to do. Thinking about all the different radio calls, all the different cues that you need to be able to see. That's chair flying.
Well, let's chair fly ourselves right to the International Space Station now with some video. We are commemorating a very significant anniversary coming up on November 2nd, 25 years of continuous human presence aboard the orbiting laboratory.
And liftoff. International Space Station is underway.
We are in the golden age of the space station right now in terms of the return on investment and what we're able to do there.
One of the great legacies of the space station is not just going to be science, but very importantly, the international cooperation. This is perhaps most prominent, international cooperation for exploration.
Yeah, what a view. 25 years. When I first joined the astronaut corps, I'd go to elementary schools and say, everybody in this room doesn't know life without someone living off of the planet Earth. Now I can do that at colleges. it's just impressive the legacy of scientific research and international cooperation that the station program has built over the last 2.5 decades. It's a treat to be part of that, and everybody that's part of human spaceflight, that big team I keep referring to, that 100,000 people across the globe, everybody should be so proud of being part of that.
One of the first things Crew-11 did as a team was design their mission patch. You, of course, participated in the design of yours. This is Crew-11's patch. Its colors celebrate the 3 nations they represent, and the 3 stars you see in there. They honor their space agencies working together, NASA, JAXA, and Roscosmos. 2 sunbeams form the number 11 that you see shaded in the background, shining on a tiny blue dot, our home on Earth. A dragon looks on, a nod to both the spacecraft and the spirit of exploration, while a red flame wraps around it, all symbolizing the full journey: launch, life in space, and a safe return home. And if you look closely, you can see a tribute to their children in the stars, a reminder that missions like this inspire the next generation.
Yeah, it's designing your patch is one of those first crew bonding experiences. You know, you put your ideas out there, but it's fun to see the final product because it really expresses the personality of the crew. And Xena hand drew the dragon, so
did she?
She's an artist.
We're going to talk more about her artistic talent later in the show when we get closer to liftoff. Look forward to doing that around T-minus 13 minutes. Right now, we want to talk about the flight kits. Nick, each crew member gets to bring personal stuff aboard the ISS. You don't get to bring a lot, and you, in fact, have a designated volume, right?
Yeah, so, you know, a small bag, you know, getting things to and from space is expensive, but it is important because you are going to be living on the space station. And so being able to bring some personal effects that help connect you and ground you to your friends and family and loved ones that are on the ground. So here's a small bag. You get to put a few things in it. Can't be too heavy, can't be too big. And everybody brings up unique things.
And certainly that's what Commander Xena Cardman did. And you had a hand in helping get her her flight kit stowed away and put into place. She told us that she's bringing, of course, photographs of family and friends, photographs carrying that have her team members in it. She's carrying some for them that she's going to then return to them. Training team, instructors, flight controllers, the people who keep the crew safe while they fly. And so she has those, but in addition, she also has cards that her late father wrote her that have been up there since Crew 9 went up, since you went up.
Yeah, so the things that we get to take up often don't ride up with us in the Crew Dragon. They come up on a cargo vehicle, and so our Crew 9 effects went up before the crew change happened. And so some of her personal items have been up there since over a year ago. And so part of it was when we got up there, making sure that we were able to set her things aside, to set Stephanie Wilson's things aside, and so that when they get to the station, they're going to be able to find them.
Michael Fink is bringing something that is very familiar to him on missions that he's gone on in the past. He's taking his wife's gamusa from her side of the family. It's a type of silk scarf from her home state of Assam. It carries with it the blessings for his trip to the ISS from her side of the family. He took one on all 3 of his previous missions. The one that he did aboard the space shuttle, as well as his 2 Soyuz missions. He's been married for 25 and a half years, and so something that's very personal and very important to him. Kimia is bringing a lot of pictures of family and friends, and he's going to give some of them back to those friends. And we mentioned Oleg earlier, taking pictures, and also a couple of toys.
He's borrowing.
He's borrowing.
He's borrowing
That's a
the
good
toy.
way to put it. With very much an intent on returning them with some additional status. A space-flown toy.
Yeah, the space-flown. There's something about, I think, this desire to bring photographs, to bring things to space, and then bring them back to your friends and family. It's really the desire is to bring them to space with you. And the best I can do is bring a little bit of space back to you. But yeah, if I could bring everybody, I mean, that's the ultimate goal, is to go from 700 people that have been in space to 700,000 people that have been in space to, the sky's the limit.
Yeah.
The more people we can get in space, appreciating and experiencing just that life-changing perspective, the better off the planet's going to be. And these are small gestures we do for our families to share that with them, but then also to let them know how important they are to actually putting us in those seats on that rocket, because you don't get there on your own. It takes a team to get you there. It takes the family, the love, and the support to get you there.
In addition to the flight kits, of course, Crew-11 taking science up as well. And some of the experiments they'll be working on include, how do you grow vitamins in space? Or even use viruses to fight bacteria on a spacecraft. For the past year and a half, Crew-11 has been training to support cutting-edge research like this aboard the International Space Station. First up is Bionutrients 3. This study is looking at how to make essential vitamins and nutrients in space so astronauts can stay healthy on long missions. They'll be testing samples like yogurt, kefir, and a yeast-based drink to see how well they work in microgravity. Next is Stem Cell X IP1, which uses space to grow stem cells. These cells can turn into any type of cell in the body and could one day help treat diseases like cancer. Growing them in microgravity may produce more cells and better ones, higher quality stem cells that we can then use on Earth. And then there's Genes in Space 12. It's testing phage therapy, which uses viruses that target and kill bacteria. It could be a powerful alternative to antibiotics, especially in space, where infections can become harder to treat. Some pretty interesting research happening on station, Dick, and stem cells, of course, that research has been around for a little bit, and even you got to work on stem cells in space in your time on the ISS.
Yeah, and the comparison between my first mission and my second mission, just the complexity of the experiments that we've been able to start to do up there it's just exploded. And so we're really starting to see return on the investment on maximizing the output of our facilities up there. But those three experiments that you highlighted they're pretty cool because they highlight different aspects. The stem cells, Genes in Space 12, it's the 12th iteration, so we've been doing this a long time.
Yeah.
Stem cells, it's getting really complex. Then you're talking about nutrients in space, and that's how we're leveraging the space station research to be able to inform us on how we're going to do deep space exploration. Because we need to learn some of those answers here close to home, where you're a few hours away from the surface and we can iterate quickly, versus taking it months or years away from the Earth, and you can't iterate as fast and learn as fast. So the space station, I was impressed with a lot of the things that I was doing this last time around were all focused on how are we reducing risk and learning more that's going to help us get back to the surface of the moon and onto Mars.
That's the focus now, and where so much research, the human research as well aspect of it. How can we help astronauts survive the hostility of space in deep space, going out to Mars, going to the moon? So much has been focused on that recently, and it's important because there's a lot of technology that we have yet to develop to help make sure astronauts are going to be safe on that journey.
Yeah, and you see this budding start of that understanding and helping really propel us deeper into space. But then you also see that level of complexity build up on the research that we're getting to be able to leverage like the stem cells here on the ground to make life better for everyone on Earth. And that's the goal of exploration at its biggest, is going and discovering and learning so that we can make things better back here on planet Earth.
T-minus 1 hour and 21 minutes and counting until liftoff of NASA and SpaceX's Crew-11 to the International Space Station. You're looking at a live view of Launch Complex 39A. That's Dragon Endeavour, the flight leader in the SpaceX fleet of vehicles. Today would be its 6th flight. Dragon Endeavour has flown 5 previous flights. Since its first flight in 2020 for Demo 2, SpaceX's Endeavour Dragon has been a workhorse for NASA's Commercial Crew program, flying mission after mission. It has safely carried astronauts to the International Space Station 5 times: Demo 2, Crew 2, Axiom Mission 1, Crew 6, and Crew 8. In all, Endeavour has flown 9 astronauts, 3 space tourists, 2 Roscosmos cosmonauts, 1 retired NASA astronaut, and 1 ESA astronaut, and an Arab astronaut to and from the International Space Station. And Crew-11 marks Endeavour's 6th mission to the ISS. And there's been some fun that's been had along the way as well. That Endeavour has seen some fun crews.
The bar is high. Choreographed dancing is that's a special skill.
Those were your friends from Crew 1 that we saw with the sweet moves. Some things we're looking forward to, of course, further down the countdown is launch escape system arm, the retraction of the crew access arm, getting closer to less than an hour from now. So we're gearing up for that. Also, the big one, T-minus 35 minutes, we'll begin tanking this rocket with propellants in order to make this flight to space.
Yeah, everything builds up to that. Well, everything builds up to liftoff, right?
That's right.
But if you're going to go anywhere, you need gas. And before we load it with gas, we got to arm the launch escape system. So all of that starts to really pick up around T-minus 45. And, right now you're still in that, you're in the seat, you're waiting, you're reflecting. As you start to arm the launch escape system, that's the mental shift So now it's time to be ready to go. We have time for another social question?
We do indeed. Let's take one. Christy asks, how do they store, drink enough water on the space station?
This is a great question.
Oh, this is great.
You can go so many directions with this.
Why don't you go into all of them?
So water is really heavy, surprisingly. And heavy things are expensive to launch into space. And we'd need to launch way too many rockets if we didn't learn how to recycle our water. And so at its simplest form, what we're trying to do on the space station is mimic the things that happen on the ground. The Earth naturally recycles its water. On the space station, we have to create these really complex machines in order to take dirty water and distill it and purify it into drinking water. And we're able to do that with about 96 to 98% of our water up there. So we only have to launch a little bit of water each time in order to replace what we've consumed. So how do we recycle? What do we recycle? Well, we have to work out every day up there for 2.5 hours. And while you're riding the bike or running on the treadmill or lifting weights, you're sweating. And that sweat has to go somewhere. It evaporates off your skin, and the air conditioners inside of the space station collect that sweat, that humidity, and then they move that into the water purification system, and it turns it into clean drinking water. That's one source. Another big source is urine. And so as we go to the restroom up there, we collect that urine and put it into a urine purification system. And that turns it into dirty water. It's actually clean, but it turns it into dirty water that we put into the water purification system. And we use that. And so what was today's coffee is tomorrow's coffee, is the day after that's coffee.
Well, you're looking live. Thank you so much for that. That was a great explanation, albeit a little bit gross. You're looking at a live view of Crew-11 at Launch Complex 39A at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. Stay right here because in just a few moments, we will be expanding our live launch coverage. Good morning and welcome back. You're watching live launch coverage of NASA and SpaceX's 11th rotational flight to the International Space Station. I'm NASA's Daryl Nail, joined once again by NASA astronaut Nick Hague. After yesterday's weather scrub, we're back on track for a second attempt. Liftoff now set for 11:43 a.m. Eastern Time from Launch Pad 39A here at the Kennedy Space Center. And before we continue, a quick reminder about Nick's incredible experience in space. General Nick Hague was selected as a NASA astronaut in 2013. His first flight to space station ended in 2018 with a launch abort following a rocket booster failure on Soyuz MS-10, a dramatic escape that he and his Roscosmos crewmate survived safely. He then returned to space successfully on Soyuz MS-12, spending 203 days on the ISS. Then last fall, he commanded NASA's SpaceX Crew-11 mission, launching with cosmonaut Alexander Gorbanov. In total, Nick has logged 373 days in space and completed 4 spacewalks. So glad you're here with us, and you've documented everything starting at T-minus 4 hours and 10 minutes early this morning, and we've been rocking and rolling ever since.
No, it's been great to be here. I wouldn't want to be anywhere else.
Supporting your friend and colleague, Zena Cardman, as well as the rest of the crew members on their mission today. Crew-11 is launching from Pad 39A. We're just over an hour away.
About the same as previously, 40% chance of
Once
violation.
they
and
launch,
copy all, we are all tracking for
they'll
MS2,
arrive at station and join Expedition 7374. And in just 3 days, Crew 10 will return home. A quick 2+2 crew handover. So we had an update there about the weather. We had been monitoring that situation. The POV, which is probability of violation, still stands at 40%. That was the update they were giving. We are go, as Nick likes to say, 60% go for launch. Let's take you through Crew-11's launch day preparations so far this morning. After waking up and grabbing a bite to eat, the crew suited up inside the historic crew quarters, a tradition that dates back decades. SpaceX teams helped them into their custom pressure suits, and just like other crews before them and yesterday, they gathered around a table for a card game to burn off any lingering bad luck before launch. After that, they followed in the footsteps of every NASA astronaut since Apollo 7 in 1968 by walking out to greet a crowd of family, friends, and supporters. Then it was into their Teslas for a security escorted ride out to Launch Pad 39A. It took about 20 minutes to get out there. Of course, a journey filled with excitement and anticipation for a second attempt. They got a look at their rocket, stared up at it, and then walked across the crew access arm and into their spacecraft. And we've been monitoring them ever since. We're watching them live now, strapped into Dragon Endeavour as they await the next big milestones, fueling of the rocket and the arming of the launch escape system. These are big moments, and we'll talk the audience through them.
Yeah, absolutely. It's right now they're waiting a little bit, but the excitement's going to start to pick up here when we arm the launch escape system and then put on the 1 million pounds of propellant that's going to go onto this rocket that we're going to turn into flame and push these guys into space.
And if all goes well, that'll happen according to plan at 11:43 a.m. Eastern Time. Now, throughout the broadcast, we've been taking your questions from social media. We want to keep them coming. Just send them in on the hashtag AskNASA on Facebook, X, YouTube, and Twitch. And if you're watching NASA's YouTube channel right now, you can refresh your player or browser to join our chat. Okay, at this time, we're going to expand our coverage as we did yesterday to include our partners at SpaceX. So let's welcome back our commentators joining us live again from Hawthorne, California. Welcome back, guys. We're going to give it another go.
Thanks, Daryl. It's great to hear and see you guys once again. And like you mentioned before, keeping an eye on the weather is going to be the name of the game today. I'm Joseph Zakshesky with NASA Communications.
And I'm Somi Srivastava, a certification engineer here at SpaceX.
We're once again excited to be...
Dragon, foot restraint checks complete.
And you just heard the call down from the crew.
Copies. Thank you.
As they continue to march forward towards those milestones, their restraint checks, they're strapped in and ready to go. And we're once again excited to be joining you from Mission Control here in Hawthorne, California, as we count down to liftoff of Crew-11, just a little more than an hour from now. And as you heard Daryl and Nick talk about during yesterday's launch attempt, the weather played the key factor and caused the scrub. They walked right up to the T-minus 1 minute and 7 second mark. So today we continue to keep our eye on the skies and monitor the weather as the clock continues to roll backwards towards liftoff. Crew-11 is our 11th mission with SpaceX, operationally flying astronauts for long-duration missions to the International Space Station, and the 12th as a part of NASA's Commercial Crew program with SpaceX. Crew-11 has 2 first-time flyers on board, as well as a veteran NASA astronaut and a veteran Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency, or JAXA, astronaut making their return to microgravity. The multinational crew also represents 3 different space agencies, Soumya: NASA, JAXA, and Roscosmos.
And today's crew will fly aboard Dragon Endeavour, which was the first operational Dragon to carry crew on board during SpaceX and NASA's Demo 2 mission in 2020 with astronauts Bob and Doug. Endeavour has been pretty busy since then, having flown NASA's Crew 2 mission, Axiom 1, and NASA's Crew 6 and Crew 8 missions. This will be the first Dragon that gets to fly 6 times. Overall, for the Dragon fleet, this will be Dragon's 49th visit to the space station and its 19th human spaceflight mission overall, and the 5th Dragon flight just this year. And notably, today's return of the Falcon 9 first stage will be the last landing at Landing Zone 1 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station.
Now, over these last 3+ hours, Crew-11 has been going through the detailed process of getting ready for their mission, similar to what they went through yesterday on the first launch attempt and their ultimate destination, the International Space Station. So let's introduce you to the crew. In the commander's seat, as you get a live look inside the capsule, is astronaut Zena Cardman, conducting her first space flight. She holds a Master of Science in Marine Sciences from the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, and has experience with NASA research in the Canadian High Arctic, and she has also supported real-time station operations and lunar surface exploration planning. And sitting right next to Cardman is pilot Mike Fink of NASA, a veteran of 3 space flights. He has spent 382 days in space, including 9 spacewalks for an impressive 48 hours and 37 minutes in total spent outside of the orbiting laboratory. Fink is a certified pilot for Boeing Starliner, a part of the Commercial Crew program, and SpaceX's Dragon, and the co-pilot flight engineer on Soyuz, plus a mission specialist on the Space Shuttle, STS-134, the last mission for Shuttle Endeavour, so only fitting that he flies on an Endeavour here today.
And serving as mission specialist is Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency, or JAXA astronaut Kimiya Yui. This will be Yui's 2nd trip to the space station. He was selected as an astronaut by JAXA back in 2009 and has logged 142 days in space. And to round it all out, Roscosmos cosmonaut Oleg Platonov is also serving as a mission specialist and was selected as a cosmonaut in 2018 and will be making his first spaceflight today.
Now, once Crew-11 is on board the International Space Station, they will briefly become members of Expedition 73. And then they will join Expedition 74 in the fall, and that'll be following the departure of Soyuz MS-27, that spacecraft that'll carry NASA astronaut Johnny Kim in his return back to Earth. While on board, Crew-11 will conduct space station maintenance and scientific research to understand plant cell division, finding alternatives to antibiotics and microgravity, investigate producing essential nutrients on demand for long-duration missions, and study how spaceflight affects human physiology and psychology. And looking forward to hear more about that incredible research being done on this mission and how it will help prepare NASA and astronauts for their return to the moon and then on to Mars. The crew will also engage with students worldwide via the ham radio and use its existing hardware with newly integrated software to test backup lunar navigation solutions. Now, as we continue to monitor today's countdown, we're approaching that 1 hour mark, 1 hour and 3 minutes to go. So let's get an update on all things that involve the Falcon 9, the spacecraft, the crew, and more as we welcome in another member of our broadcast team in Ronnie.
Thanks so much, Joseph, and good morning, everyone. I'm Ronnie Foreman, a senior sales manager here at SpaceX, and I'm very excited to be joining you again today from right outside of Mission Control in Hawthorne. It continues to be a smooth countdown this morning, and we're looking good for an on-time liftoff at 11:43 a.m. Eastern Time from Launch Complex 39A in Florida, as long as our weather continues to cooperate. Now, coming up here at about T-minus 45 minutes, we're going to be listening in for our team to report their readiness for propellant load with a final go, no-go poll. Here on the ground, teams will be staffed around the clock in Mission Control to monitor Dragon and the mission, not just today, but throughout the entire flight, from liftoff to Crew-11's arrival at the space station, all the way through splashdown when those astronauts return home. On console or on headset in Mission Control, which you've got that great live shot of on your screen right now, we've got 6 key positions. The mission director is in charge of the room and tasked with making real-time decisions to ensure mission success. The person that you're going to hear today talking to the astronauts is the Crew Operations and Resources Engineer, who we'll refer to as the core throughout the broadcast. There's a good shot of him there in the lower right-hand corner of your screen as well. And of course, those 4 additional team members are focused on vehicle systems, including avionics, navigation and control, software, propulsion, life support, and communication with the ground support teams. Then apart from our mission control here, the Falcon 9 team is currently located in the Launch and Landing Control Center at Hangar X in Florida, not too far away from LC-39A, which we're looking at now. So with less than, or just more than an hour until launch, we are all settling in here across the country for final checkouts, propellant loading, and ultimately launch. Joseph?
Thank you, Ronnie. And just like yourself and everybody here in SpaceX and across the country, looking forward to this launch as we continue to have that countdown roll back. And just like the teams here in Hawthorne, California, NASA has its own team members at NASA's Mission Control Center in the International Space Station Flight Control Room in Houston, Texas, where our other teammate for today's broadcast, Sandra Jones, we'll hear from her in just a few moments. That's where she's located, and that team has been busy preparing the International Space Station for Dragon's arrival. Now, the teams on the ground in Mission Control are giving their goes for launch to make sure that the station is ready to receive Dragon Endeavour and the new crew on board. Following liftoff to the flight to the space station will be a little bit shorter than what yesterday's launch attempt would have been. It was 39 hours then. Now,
cycling orbit tank isolation valves to equalize low flow pressure.
Dragon copies.
And more great communication there between the teams on the ground to the crew as we continue to march towards that liftoff time, as we are now zeroing in on 60 minutes away. Well, speaking of time, I was saying that yesterday's launch attempt would have had Crew-11 go for about 39 hours of phasing between launch and docking to the International Space Station. Now with today's launch attempt, that'll take about 16 hours, with Dragon flying autonomously the entire way. Now, docking is targeted for early Saturday morning, August 2nd, and that'll be 3 a.m. Eastern time, or midnight here on the West Coast. And just like autopilot on a commercial aircraft, the crew always has the ability to take manual control of the spacecraft if so needed.
We're now just under T-minus 1 hour and counting.
SpaceX, your go for Section 5. When ready, report go for launch.
We're continuing to hear great comms.
Dragon copies, go for Section 5 and Wilco.
Great comms between Mission Control and the crew. So we are now at T-minus 59 minutes and counting down to today's launch. While we wait, let's check in with NASA's Sandra Jones at the Johnson Space Center to see how things are shaping up at Mission Control in Houston. Sandra.
Welcome back to Mission Control Houston here at the Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas. We are here in the hub of human spaceflight at NASA. The team here has pulled go for launch, and the International Space Station is ready for the crew to lift off as they begin their journey to the orbiting laboratory. At the time of launch, the International Space Station will be traveling 260 miles over the North Atlantic just south of Nova Scotia. In the home stretch of the rendezvous, NASA and SpaceX flight controllers will enter into what we call integrated operations, where both flight control teams will conduct a series of go, no-go polls for Dragon Endeavour's docking to the International Space Station. Rotational missions like Crew-11 help NASA continue to maximize the important research and technology demonstrations made possible only in the International Space Station.
SpaceX, Dragon, go for launch.
SpaceX copies. Dragon crew is go for launch.
And you heard it there from the commander of the Dragon Endeavour. They are go for launch. We are continuing to march towards a launch in 58 minutes from today. Their destination, of course, you see there on your screen, the International Space Station, with a unique microgravity environment, critical for NASA to prepare for future commercial low Earth orbit destinations and to understand and overcome the challenges of long-duration spaceflight necessary for a long-term presence on the Moon and crewed missions deeper into the solar system, including on to Mars. Now here's a closer look at the mission and what Crew-11 will have to look forward to during their stay aboard the International Space Station.
International Space Station, one of humanity's greatest accomplishments so far. 15 countries working together and adding more all the time that have helped plan, build, and fly the International Space Station. And it just shows what human beings can do when we work together.
As Crew-11, we are about to launch on board a Dragon spacecraft to the International Space Station.
We are actually continuing an ISS mission almost a quarter centuries. Right now, Crew-10 crew members are working very hard on the ISS. So we got that result, and actually we do more researches, then pass that information to Crew-12.
Конечно, исследования на Международной космической станции, как я считаю, они очень важны, и они являются ключевым звеном в развитии технологии, науки и всей цивилизации. И все самое лучшее из космоса всегда приходит рано или поздно на Землю в виде новых открытий, новых приборов, возможностей и технологий.
I'm very excited to see what kind of payloads we get to work with. It's a really interesting day-to-day life where 1 hour you might be fixing the toilet and then the next hour you're working on a physics experiment studying fundamental processes of our universe.
We're going to be up there for a lot of time. And we're going to, every day, be in space, look at the Earth go by, and accomplish some really amazing science. We will do material science and human research in space, lots of experiments, and then maybe do some spacewalks. It's a really fun crew to be on. We're going to enjoy every moment, and we're going to help each other to be successful and accomplish our mission.
So we have various kinds of difficult training together. For example, emergency training in Building 9 or emergency training in SpaceX. This kind of training actually made our bond stronger.
Наш экипаж Crew-11 — это экипаж, который состоит из высокопрофессионально подготовленных людей. И мне нравится этот экипаж.
In some ways, my only expectation for the mission is to fly and return home safely and still friends when we get back. There are so many things to play around with, to study, to explore, and I'm really open to every possibility, ways to engage with the International Space Station.
We all came from other crews. Kimiya, Yui, San, and I both came from Starliner 1. Oleg was on a Soyuz mission before this, and Zena, of course, was on Crew-9. But we all came together with our previous experience, melded into a really fun team, ready to go fly to our International Space Station.
We are back here at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida, joined by astronaut Nick Hague. I'm Daryl Nail with NASA Communications, and we are watching this countdown proceed, the second day. We were scrubbed by weather yesterday. We heard about that earlier, got down to 1 minute and 7 seconds. What's interesting about this to me, Nick, is although the launch is delayed, oddly enough, their arrival to the International Space Station has not been delayed, not even a second. They are still going to be arriving on Saturday at 3 a.m., but they're just going to go quicker.
Yeah, orbital dynamics can do strange things like that. Sometimes you need to speed up to slow down and vice versa. And in this case, we can launch at a different time, use some orbital dynamics to our advantage, and arrive to the station at the exact same time. What it means for the crew is I'm going to be in that capsule for 16 hours instead of 40 hours, which, it's a tight space. It's not the tightest of spaces, but it'll be nice to get to the station a little bit faster and be able to spread your wings out coming through the hatch.
A small benefit to a launch delay, having a little shorter.
If there is a silver lining somewhere in there, this is it.
This is it. All right. Well, let's take a social question. We've been asking throughout the broadcast for our audience to send us questions, and Nick, you've been doing a great job answering them. Had a lot of kids asking questions as well. Our next question comes from Jeff, who asks, what was the most interesting thing you saw outside the window when on board the ISS? I've heard you describe it now for 2 launch attempts. I thought it was fascinating that you were able to see the entire coast to coast of America, from West Coast to East Coast, and I just wondered what that was like. But what was the singular most interesting thing you saw?
So this last time, it was the difference between looking out the cupola 6 years ago and looking out the cupola now. it was nighttime where, the sun's getting ready to rise. You can see stars all over the place. And I start to see these streaks of, light, and it's like fireflies on the horizon. And what it was other satellites. So in the 6 years, there's been so many satellites added to space that now it's easy to see the sun reflect off those satellites as you're coming up over sunrise, and you start to get this sense of just how congested space really is, and how important it is to keep track of all that stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so that is it's critical, and there's a connection there, with the Space Force. We're right here co-located to launch into space, and we rely on each other, but then also to keep the station safe. The Space Force is doing its job as well.
Absolutely, the 45th Space Wing tracking all of the assets in space. Well, we love hearing from you, so keep those questions coming. Just hit us up on Facebook, X, YouTube, or Twitch with the hashtag AskNASA, and we'll get to yours live. T-minus 51 minutes and counting now till liftoff, so let's head out to NASA's Tony Jaramillo, who is standing by live at one of the best viewing spots here at Kennedy. She's joined by NASA's Acting Associate Administrator, Vanessa Weich. Tony.
Hey, thanks, Daryl. That's right. We are out here once again in an amazing viewing location where we can see the rocket at the launch pad. Off to my left here, and joining me is Vanessa Weich. Vanessa, we saw you at Crew Walkout yesterday and also out there today. Did you have a chance to speak with the crew before they headed out to the launch pad? Anything that you told them?
Well, yesterday I had the opportunity to kind of say, hey, we're very excited. We wanted to tell them they were all here. We're cheering for them and excited about their launch. And so that was very exciting on yesterday. And then today we got up and we did it again. And we told them, yes, that we're very excited for them, each and every one of them, and just wish them well. I did have the opportunity to speak with them, 2 days ago. And to speak with them more in a setting where we could talk and talk about the mission that was coming up. Each and every one of them are excited about their mission in different ways, the experiments that they'll have to do, and they're excited about getting to the International Space Station, what they'll do at the International Space Station, the science experiments, the technology, and looking forward to them. They'll be the crew that will be on orbit as we celebrate 25 years of having continuous presence off of the Earth. And so that'll be great. And then they'll also probably be there when we start our celebrations here in the United States of our 250th birthday of the United States. So a very exciting time for this particular crew.
Absolutely. We are all very excited for them to go to station, hoping that happens today. Crew-11 will mark the 12th human space flight for SpaceX under NASA's Commercial Crew program. Can you tell us a little bit more about the significance of maintaining that human presence in space?
Yeah, so we're really great partners that we have with SpaceX, and them being able to get our crew members to the International Space Station. And right now, today, we're working together off the planet, building towards what we're going to be doing, furthering our LEO economy. So as we continue on doing our experiments on the International Space Station, we're also looking at follow-on space stations. And so working together as internationals, as our industry partners on those further new commercial space stations, and then all of the things that we're learning is helping us as we prepare for Artemis. And so with the Artemis missions, we need everyone, all hands on deck. We'll be working together as we go. Right now, we're planning for Artemis 2, and I think right here at the Kennedy Space Center right now, we have our astronauts today. They're still here. They're doing their training for Artemis 2. But their first flight, they'll go and they would do a flyby of the moon, and then next up is landing on the moon. So we're excited that all of us get to work on this together. Our international partners, our industry partners, academia, NASA, we're working on this as one team.
Vanessa, thank you so much for joining us. Now we'll send it back to our team in Hawthorne.
Thanks, Tony. Falcon 9 is the first orbital-class rocket that is capable of reflight. Together, Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy have completed more than 520 launches and over 449 reflights.
And today, the booster will be attempting to make the last landing at Landing Zone 1, which is just down the coast from NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida.
Rapid reusability drastically is the key innovation that is making space more accessible. While today's booster is on its third trip to space after most recently supporting AX-4, the fourth private astronaut mission to the International Space Station, we're working towards qualifying our fleet of Falcon boosters and fairings to support 40 missions each. And if you want to keep track, we're currently at 29 flights of a single Falcon booster. This same spirit of continuous iteration and innovation does not stop with Falcon 9. NASA awarded SpaceX a contract to develop the USD Orbit vehicle, a modified Dragon designed to guide the space station through a controlled re-entry into Earth's atmosphere.
And when the time comes and the International Space Station reaches the end of its orbital life and mission, Dragon will help achieve a safe deorbit.
And another innovation SpaceX has been working on is the intravehicular spacesuits, or IVA suits, that astronauts wear during Dragon missions. Our team recently made some design upgrades to make the suit easier to get in and out of, and to make it easier to incorporate future updates. The new suits have height adjustability built in, so they won't need as much customization as with previous designs.
Now you can see the crew right there. The one that's wearing this new suit is astronaut Mike Fink, which is the second one from the left. Today's mission, Fink will be the only one wearing this new suit as the Crew-11 pilot. And that said, we expect to see SpaceX's new IVA suit on all astronauts for Crew-12. But astronauts who have previously flown on SpaceX missions still have the option to continue wearing their original suits. And for the Crew-11 astronauts, they are staying comfortable in their suits right now as they prepare for liftoff while the clock continues to roll back. And we'll check in with Ronnie on the status of today's countdown.
Thanks so much, Joseph. So we are coming up on just under 46 minutes to launch, and our teams are carefully moving through our pre-flight process. Next up in the countdown, we're going to hear SpaceX's launch director check in with the team for readiness. And that's readiness both for propellant load and for launch. As mentioned earlier, the Dragon launch team, as well as key NASA launch members, are in the Launch and Landing Control Center at SpaceX's Hangar X in Florida. Our launch director will also check in with the Dragon mission director, referred to as MD, and the NASA launch manager to make sure they're ready to move forward as well. Of course, our Crew-11 astronauts right now are on board Dragon, waiting to get the green light to stow the crew arm for launch and arm the launch escape system. Got some great shots of our astronauts on the left-hand side of your screen right now, and of course they are safely tucked inside Dragon on the right-hand side. Once we hear that launch director give the go-ahead, we'll get a great view of that access arm moving away from the spacecraft. We are going to stand by here and listen in for that final poll and some instructions to our team in that final lead up to liftoff.
Poll for propellant load and launch is complete. Stand by for briefing on control room procedures. For all operators at MCCX and Hangar X, both control rooms will go into lockdown at T-minus 45 minutes and will remain in that state until LES is disarmed. All operators are to remain at their console and maintain a sterile cockpit until MD confirms successful disarming of the launch escape system following orbital insertion or propellant offload in the event of a scrub. For non-urgent no-go conditions, brief the CE or LD and they will approve aborting the count. For urgent issues affecting the safety of the operation, operators shall call hold on the countdown net. Launch control will abort the launch auto sequence immediately and proceed into launch abort. At T-minus 10 seconds, launch control will be hands-off and relying on automated abort criteria for the remainder of the count. Operators advise launch director whether structural breakup or fire is imminent or occurring per Dragon manual flight escape rules. Launch control, you may proceed with arming the crew arm for movement.
Arming crew arm now.
So we just heard those instructions to our team. Again, we're about to see that crew access arm move away from the spacecraft.
Crew access arm retraction started.
Starting right now. And with that, propellant loading is going to get underway here in a little bit less than 10 minutes. So with that, let's check back in with Daryl and Nick.
And you can see now the crew access arm articulating away from the Dragon Endeavour, where our crew of 4 is inside. That's a beautiful shot there. a big milestone after getting the go from the launch director at SpaceX. A look from inside the Crew Access Arm now and out over the Space Coast. In this moment in between having the Crew Access Arm rotate away and the arming of the Launch Escape System, there's a little buffer there where the astronauts will be on their own until that can be armed. And then we start tanking the rocket.
Right, so everything is leading up to
Crew access arm retraction
adding
completed.
the propellant, adding the oxidizer, filling those tanks on the rocket. And so what do you need to do to be safe for that? Well, I need to arm the launch escape system, but I don't want to do that when the arm is right next to the capsule. So I need to move the arm away. Now I can arm the launch escape system, and then we can start filling the rocket.
T-minus 41 minutes and counting here at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida.
SpaceX, you are go for Section 6, close visors and arm launch escape system.
Copy. Go for Section 6, closing visors and arming launch escape system.
Here's a beautiful shot from our helicopter looking west. You can see the formation of cumulus clouds in the area. Weather is a watch item for today. The launch weather officer.
Dragon, visors closed, arming launch escape system.
SpaceX copies.
The launch weather officer putting it at 60% go for today. The concern is the buildup of cumulus clouds, the ones that you see there building up. There's a lot of moisture in the atmosphere. But although you see those clouds around the pad, notice as we start to circle around to the west and look east, clear skies out over the Atlantic Ocean. So when you look at this picture, Nick, you can certainly understand that even though we have clouds that are building in the area, there's an area that we can find over top of this launch complex that we could potentially
Launch system is verified armed.
Get clear enough path to launch this rocket.
Yeah, you just need a hole big enough to launch through. So you don't have to have cloudless skies. You just need clear enough skies.
Clear enough 10-mile hole would be nice.
I think if we think enough positive thoughts here at the launch site, we can create that bubble.
I'm working on mine.
Me too.
And so we've been listening as they walk through the milestones here, the arming of the launch escape system. This is a critical system. Nick, you know this very well.
Yeah, it's an absolutely critical system. We're just moments away from them getting ready to tank the rocket, fill it up with the kerosene and the liquid oxygen, and before you start to do that procedure and load all of that stored energy onto the rocket, you arm the launch escape system so that if anything goes wrong in a heartbeat, that system can pull that capsule away from the rocket and off to safety.
Commander Nick Hague, when you were commanding Crew 9, you sat through these very same moments in the Dragon, on the launch pad, ready to go.
Yeah, once you press the button to launch to arm the launch escape system, there's a switch in your mind. Now you're sitting on a live rocket. Now everything is primed and ready to go. You are definitely focused on everything leading to T-0 and liftoff.
And that arming of the launch escape system happening just a few seconds from now. We expect it at T-minus 38 minutes. And again, that allows the Draco engines on the Dragon to pull that spacecraft away in the event of an emergency.
This is a beautiful view. One of the things I love about the way Dragon fills its tanks is being able to watch the frost build up when these cryogenic fuels, when you load them onto the rocket, you're going to see it change color. It's a unique experience for a Falcon.
You were talking about the crew inside and the launch escape system. There's a manual option as well if the crew senses something.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a handle that sits on the display panel in between the pilot
Falcon
and the
9 tanks
commander
are
seat.
venting for the starter propellant load.
And so if something happens, it's within reach for Xena to be able to grab that handle and pull her crew to safety.
So there's that redundancy. You've got the automatic system, and you also have the human factor, which is critically important in a mission like this.
Yeah, even though they're highly automated systems, there's always a manual backup, and even though it's on autopilot essentially all the way to docking, if need be, the commander, the pilot, the crew can intervene those automatics and revert to a manual control.
We are awaiting the beginning of tanking, which is slated for T-minus 35 minutes and counting. You talk about the manual factor. You can also fly this manually, this Dragon Endeavor. And is it through touchscreens?
Yeah, the Dragon has a unique interface. It's a touchscreen panel, so once you activate the manual controls, you have a series of virtual buttons on a touchscreen that you can issue commands that would change the attitude or even change the motion of the capsule.
Beautiful shot there by our Kennedy Space Center flight operations team.
You're watching live launch coverage of NASA's SpaceX Crew-11 from Kennedy Space Center. Live feed coming to us here on Live Impact News from NASA. You can see the 4 astronauts there aboard the Falcon 9. They're inside their Dragon capsule named Endeavor. We're counting down to launch, just under 35 minutes here until we anticipate that they'll be launching over to the International Space Station. We've seen in the last few minutes the retraction of the crew arm there, and we're now seeing that they are loading the rocket with fuel, which is a good sign, continuing to show that we are on schedule here for a launch just about 34.5 minutes from now. What you're looking at here are live aerials from the NASA support team. There's a whole crew of folks all around the Kennedy Space Center who support launches like the one you're seeing today. And we can actually take you inside the Kennedy Space Center hangar to show you what that helicopter support team is like. They provide live images for broadcasts just like this, but also key scientific information that they can use to review the launch in high definition. Let's take you inside that Kennedy Space Center support and show you a little bit about their helicopter fleet.
We're over here in the flight operations area of Kennedy Space Center, just adjacent to the landing strip that the shuttle used to use, and we're learning a little bit about the aviation support that goes into launching to space.
Basically a small utility helicopter we use here at NASA to do a couple of things. One of which is to do some of the filming for some of our launches. What will happen is you will get a shot of what we like to call a wide angle shot from high altitude. That'll be us in a little helicopter with the camera that'll get that wide angle shot. So usually it's about 15 to 25 seconds that we'll get. It's dynamic, it's beautiful, it's nighttime. We'll be up providing that. So that's one of the things that we do with the aircraft. At safe distance away from the Falcon 9 as it launches, and then it's an incredible shot. It's incredibly dynamic from like 3,000 to 4,000 feet. It looks really neat, especially at night. So So let me open the front up. All the other things that are in here, but of course we do have custom NASA seats. Why does that matter? It just matters because it's awesome. Custom NASA seats. I'll even face it this way. Beautiful seat. They look great. I mean, come on. What's there not to love? So I have generally a single pilot aircraft that actually has an autopilot in it, so I can fly it by myself in instrument and meteorological conditions as well. So if the weather's bad, I can fly it by myself with an autopilot. So if I get in here, which can happen, and as it boots up, this is kind of what some of it looks like as it's booting up. So what I mean by MFDs or multifunctional displays, they're basically displays that can be interchanged. So, but to answer your question, analog like steam gauges, I don't have any steam gauges in here except for this. So that's a lot of trust, but it's a heavily and very reliable aircraft. I mean, the best helicopter that I've ever flown. So you can quote me on that.
How many different radios do you have to coordinate through all the different groups that you're probably working with at one time?
I'd say about 8 radios.
Wow.
Even more than that, if I count them all right, there's like 8 or 9 radios. Yeah, and during Artemis, I mean, it was instrumental that everyone communicated positively and everyone knew where everyone was at, because that coordination is key to mission success.
Are you guys involved with kind of clearing the launch area in case a boat strays in or
Yeah,
whatever?
that's a very good question. That is a part of our role as well. They call that sea surveillance. So basically we go out over the ocean up to sometimes 25, 30 miles out just to ensure that no one's out there. So we'll get a target or a contact. We'll go out and investigate to see if they're inside of that controlled area, and we'll nicely tell them that they need to leave that area or give them kind of a moment of pause to kind of let them know, and a NASA helicopter shows up, at a certain altitude, we definitely want to make sure that they get the message. So NASA, we're here to help. And we have people in the back that will do that sort of stuff. We even have a sign that basically is basically says, something like that. Like, hey, hi, we're NASA, we're here to help. We need you to basically back off outside of the protected area.
So about a year ago, there was a launch that was scrapped.
There was.
Because of
there was.
Cruise ship that was.
Right.
And
I was not, we were not working that one.
That's
why. One of the reasons. So perhaps.
And you're again looking live at Kennedy Space Center here as we prepare for the launch of NASA's SpaceX Crew-11 to the International Space Station. That'll be coming your way at about 11:43, or just about half an hour from now, as you continue to watch live coverage on Live Impact News on WCNC+. Now, you can take a look here at the sky, and it looks a little cloudier in our big picture as opposed to the little inset box there from NASA, but both pictures do show clouds that are building across the region, and if you were watching launch coverage yesterday, you know that's why they had a scrub. So let's take a look here at the satellite picture over Florida right now. Kennedy Space Center is on the top right corner of your screen, where the east coast of Florida jets out there into the Atlantic Ocean. That's where Cape Canaveral is, and you can see that we do have the building of some clouds, and that is ultimately why they scrubbed yesterday. Let's take a listen in here as we await for an update on the fueling process.
Preparing for yesterday's launch attempt, today's launch attempt, and if necessary, as we continue to monitor the weather, we'll keep an eye out for any future opportunities that come in. So right now we're inside half an hour to go until the T-minus liftoff point. So let's go back to today's mission, NASA SpaceX's Crew-11, and hear a bit more from the astronauts flying today.
I think it's really innate in our human nature to want to keep exploring and to keep pushing boundaries. Everything that we do in space is ultimately for Earth and for the human species.
We are having a lot of good experiments on orbit, making new medicines. That is actually good for everybody.
By understanding how to live and work in space like we have with the International Space Station, we can now become a multiplanetary species by having bases on the Moon and bases on Mars.
И выполнение полета в космос, на мой взгляд, важно, потому что в конечном счете необходимо человечеству будет двигаться в дальний космос для того, чтобы открывать новые миры, исследовать новые и новые горизонты.
For me, it's a really compelling goal to go farther and farther afield in space and pushing our boundaries as a human species that way, learning more about our own home planet as we try to go farther.
We've been going and living aboard the International Space Station for 25 years. We're ready to make the next steps. We're ready to go to the moon. We're ready to go to Mars. We're ready to explore the solar system. We understand the effects of what life in space does to the human body, and we need to continue those studies. We need to continue getting ready and get ready and go to the moon and Mars, and that's why it's important to go to space.
From growing
Again, you're looking
vitamins
live
in
at Kennedy
space to
Space
testing
Center.
new
We're
ways
just
to
about
fight
28
disease,
minutes
Crew-11
until
is
launch.
about to take on
Again, the crew
some
is going to be
incredible
headed up for at
research
least a
aboard the
6-month
International
rotation
Space
on the
Station.
International
First up,
Space Station, which is in its 25th year
study
of
is looking at
consistent
how to
human
make
occupation,
essential vitamins
a joint
and
effort
nutrients in
by
space
multiple
so astronauts can
agencies
stay
around the
healthy on
world.
long
Today's crew is made up of
They'll
2
be
astronauts from the United
testing
States,
samples
one from
like
Japan
yogurt,
and one
kefir,
from
and a
Russia.
yeast-based drink
We're counting
to
down
see
to an
how well they
11:38
work
p.m.
in
Eastern
microgravity.
Time launch.
Next up
The
is stem
crew
cell
will be
XIP1,
launching either
which
at that
uses
time or
space
not
to
at that
grow
time at
stem
all. There's no
cells.
flexibility
These
in
cells
this
can turn
launch
into
schedule
any
here
type
as
of
they will
cell
be
in the body
rendezvousing
and
and
could
meeting
one
up at the
day help
International
treat
Space
diseases
Station.
like
Today marks
cancer.
the second launch
Growing them in
attempt
microgravity
following a
may
scrub
produce
yesterday,
more
which came at
cells
T-minus
and better
1
ones
minute.
than we can
And
make
we
on
scrubbed
Earth.
yesterday due to a cloud, a cumulus
genes
cloud
in
that had
space
moved
12.
over the launch complex. And as we look back out at
It's
live
testing
radar, you can see that
phage
once
therapy,
again,
which uses
we are dealing with
viruses that
clouds
target
building
and
here
kill
along
bacteria.
the Florida East
It
Coast,
could
there
be a
along
powerful
the Atlantic Ocean.
alternative
The
to
sea breeze kicked
antibiotics,
off some
especially
clouds
in
yesterday.
space,
They had
where
a picture
infections can
perfect
become
launch day
harder
yesterday.
to
It
treat.
really looked like everything was
A lot
going to
of
be good to
research
go
as
into that
well
final minute
happens
when a
on the
cloud got
human
into
body.
the zone too
And
close to the
you
launch
had
pad.
some research
And
that you
we
did
have a
when you were
40%
there.
chance that we could see
every
that happen
astronaut that goes to the
again
space
today.
station
So
can volunteer
as
to
they
be a
continue to
subject
fuel the
for a
rocket, we'll
plethora
continue to
of
monitor
human
satellite and
experiments,
radar
and
and
we're
updates from
learning so
NASA
much about
and from
what
SpaceX to
affects
learn
us from our
what
immune
could be
system
going on.
all
But
the way
right now,
down to
everything
our
is
bones
just
and our muscles
green light
and
forward,
even the makeup of our
continuing with the
DNA.
launch
It's
countdown
fascinating the amount we can learn.
until
And if you
we
want to know
hear
why
otherwise. It's
Nick
pretty
is
much
able
just
to
the
have
weather
such a
that
young
is a
look, it's because
concern
in space
today. If we learn of any
get
other
older
problems, we'll let
slower.
you know. But everything else
Like
seems to be going
0.005
status quo.
seconds
So
slower.
why do we
that
go to
and
the
radiation's good for
International
complexion.
Space Station? Well, NASA
Thank you, Nick,
who
for all your
is now
insight.
saying in my
let's
ear that
toss
they
it
are
out
beginning
to
the fueling
Tony
of
at
stage
OSB
2, the second part of the
Hey,
rocket
thanks,
here. So
Daryl.
again, we are
Joining us
continuing on
here, we have
schedule.
Dr. Stephen
NASA
Platts,
says the
Dr.
International
Lori
Space
Glaze
Station is
again. Thank you
important to
guys
their
so
mission to
both
one day
so
get
much for
astronauts
joining us
back
once
to
again
the moon.
on this
You heard a little
beautiful
bit about
day.
Artemis
You know,
here in our
Steve,
program
Lori,
so far,
let's discuss
and
the human
eventually on
research
to
that's going to
Mars.
be flying
The
aboard
International
this
Space
mission.
Station
Can you
acts
tell
as
us
a
what the
laboratory
crew will
to
be
not only
conducting?
learn about
Sure,
biology
the Human Research Program
in
is
space,
sponsoring
how
10
humans
research
and their bodies
experiments
react over
for
long-term
this
stays in
particular
space,
launch.
but also how we're going
really
to
excited
pull off
about
some
it.
of
We
these
have
missions. By the time we get to the moon and Mars,
cardiovascular
astronauts are
studies.
going to need to not
Studies
only bring their
looking
own
at the
food,
brain
but to
and
be
the
able
eyeball,
to grow their own food. So there at
muscle,
Kennedy
skeleton,
Space
pretty
Center,
much
there are
everything you can
astronauts
think
on
of.
the
And
ground
what we're most
who
excited
are
about
trying
is
to
we're really
learn
able
the
to
best
focus on some
ways
of
to
the
grow
biggest risks
food
we
in
have to the
space.
human
And it's
for
experiments that then
spaceflight, and we're
continue up
focusing
on the
how we
International
can
Space
better
Station as they
understand everything we
really
need
work to
get to the moon and Mars.
hone
You know, speaking about the moon and Mars, Lori, can you tell us a little bit more about how this human research help us on those future missions?
You bet.
You know, when we start thinking about our future at the moon and Mars, sometimes it seems like science fiction. You know, the idea of having a permanent base on the moon that we can visit, or sending humans to Mars. But
in space, because the longer the missions go and the further from Earth they go, the more dependent astronauts will be on growing their own food.
This can't be a crew-intensive activity. The crew is we're not devising our crew complements by sending up people who are botanists and farmers like the Martian did. You may see that Mars looks like it's at the end of the roadmap, but in actuality, because of the needs of the food system, it's really the first area we're working towards. Prepackaged food, currently, what we fly in the ISS begins to degrade in certain key nutrients after like 18 months. For Artemis, I can send the prepackaged food up there and we're good to go, no issues. But for a mission to Mars, that's potential eventually 2 to 3 years, make it longer in duration. Now I have to supplement that diet because certain key nutrients are starting to degrade.
So right now we're moving forward with some really cool plants. We're doing cucumbers and melons. So I think what's interesting is we'll be able to utilize the work that we do here to expand the amount of foods that are available to the astronauts to eat in the future, so that we can alleviate menu fatigue, because we don't want them to get tired of what they're eating.
Or engineer plants that have less inedible material, more fruit associated with them, so we're actually using more of the plants than what you would traditionally grow today.
One of the plant growth systems we have on ISS is called the Advanced Plant Habitat, or the APH, and the experiments that go on there are called the pH experiments. pH PHO4, I didn't mention last time, but we grew peppers in the advanced plant habitat. So, and then this one is going to be PHO7.
PHO7, very cool.
And what we're using is technology, science carriers, sensors to help us identify what's going on inside the boxes. And then we develop hardware here in our makerspace, like 3D printing, fabrication, rapid prototyping, to make everything work. One of the features of this experiment is something that we haven't done yet, is collecting a sample from the root zone in microgravity. We use this growth media. It's called arsenolite. It's the red clay that you see on baseball fields. And if you open the box in space, it'll float everywhere. So how do you get a root sample back to here? Well, one of our students came up with a pouring device that's 3D printed. We're using a thread on the actual lid. This screws in, and then a sample or a core comes out that holds the sample in it. Once the astronaut pulls it out, they put it into the -80 below freezer, and then we bring it back to Earth and do analysis with it. So it's really cool. I don't know much about the analysis, but I do know about the prototyping and the drawings and the 3D printing. So it's like where all microbiology and engineers and biology come together. This is it completely.
So that's a little bit of what we learned about the process when we visited Kennedy Space Center for a previous crew launch. That was Crew-6. Today we're looking live at Crew-11, the launch here coming up at about 11:43 Eastern Time, which is just about over 21 minutes from now. 21 minutes and 50 seconds is when the crew of 4 here hopes to begin their journey up to the International Space Station. It's going to be the start of a 6-month stay for them up there at the International Space Station. This is a part of the ongoing crew rotations that happen up there at the ISS, which has been seeing continuous occupation from humans for the last 25 years. It's in the year 2030 where the International Space Station will turn about 30 years old and is anticipated to come up on the end of its use, and NASA and other agencies are working to determine exactly what comes next. Could be the launch of some private space stations. But this for us today is looking to be like the launch of NASA's SpaceX Crew-11. The crews typically stay a minimum of 6 months at the International Space Station. There has been some talk of extending those stays maybe upwards of 8 months to help with some budgetary restraints. We have 4 astronauts on board today, 2 from the United States, 1 from Japan, 1 from Russia. And again, also some budgetary talks that future missions may be reduced down to maybe 3 crew members. That's still being determined and discussed. As we continue to look here at the countdown, we're counting down to 11:38 p.m. Eastern Time, and that is the one and only moment that they'll be able to get this rocket off the ground today. It started, countdown procedures started about 4 hours ago on what is the second launch attempt here, and if they're unable to launch today for any particular reason, the next launch attempt will come tomorrow. And so right now we are continuing to monitor audio from NASA and from the launch complex, which is actually just back over there near the vehicle assembly building. You saw it on your screen just a moment ago. That is that big giant building that they have over there at Kennedy Space Center. The launch countdown complex is right next door, but we're watching right now as they're continuing to fuel the first and second stages of the rocket. Those are key milestones here as we're at about 11:24, and so the next big milestone will come at about 11:36 when the Falcon 9 chill process begins prior to launch, and that's when things really begin to accelerate. And about 11:42 is when we'll have the final go for launch. We have about a 40% chance that we could have a weather interference today as we again look out at satellite. You can see clouds building over there at the Kennedy Space Center out on Cape Canaveral. It's in the top right of your screen along the east coast of Florida. That sea breeze brought in one pesky cumulus cloud yesterday that did cause a violation of launch procedures. Even though they were a 90% go yesterday for weather, you can see in this live shot right now we are getting clouds building at the at the Kennedy Space Center, which could disrupt today's launch to the International Space Center. And so we'll continue to monitor this as fueling is ongoing. They are still loading up the rocket and still trying to meet all of their milestones, even though we have a 40% chance that weather could be a problem with today's launch. So one of the astronauts on board, the commander, Zena Cardman, she actually studied here in North Carolina at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. Let's learn a little bit more about her as we continue to monitor the launch countdown right here on Live Impact News. Take a listen.
I think in a lot of ways, science and exploration is just innate to us as human beings. That's why toddlers ask so many why questions. It's just part of who we are. In many ways, I think trying to explore space generates solutions to problems that we didn't even know we had.
My name is Zena Cardman, and I am the commander of NASA's SpaceX Crew-11 mission to the International Space Station.
I was born in Champaign-Urbana, Illinois, but grew up in Williamsburg, Virginia. I grew up almost like an only child. I have 2 older brothers, but the younger of the 2 actually went off to college when I was 5 years old. And so I learned to play in my backyard a lot, play with friends, use my imagination, and explore the natural world around me. I studied biology as an undergraduate student. This is largely because I had a really excellent high school biology teacher who inspired me to pursue research on my own, even as a high school student. But while I was at college, I also got to know microbiology. I got to know geosciences and chemistry. I wound up doing a lot of research in an oceanography marine sciences department and studying in remote locations like Antarctica. I also, while I was an undergraduate, became a creative writing minor, and I've always really valued that chance to study the creative side of my brain and explore our natural world through that side as well. I love being an astronaut right now because there are many pathways to get to the International Space Station. We spend long duration periods, so many months long, living and working on board that space station, and it's really focused on research. A lot of that research is on our home planet, and a lot of that research is on us as human subjects. I'm very excited to be actually a test subject for a lot of the medical research that we're doing on board the ISS. I've signed up for a very large, all-encompassing medical study called CIPHER, and this, I think, is going to be critical as we start thinking about going for longer durations and farther places like the Moon and Mars. My role as commander is to bring out the best in my crewmates from the moment we start training till the moment we get back to Earth and then some. And so I'm always thinking about that larger mission overview and how my crewmates are doing and what we can do for each other. Spaceflight, by definition, requires collaboration and requires more than one person, and the chance to be part of something much larger than myself has been humbling and inspiring and deeply fulfilling. Even since I was a child, looking up at the stars, looking up at the cosmos is inspiring. It helps me answer questions like, what are we doing here? Who are we? Where are we? I don't think we grow if we don't challenge ourselves. I think that's true for myself, it's true for teams, and it's true for us as a society and as a species. We have to take some risks, we have to challenge ourselves in order to push ourselves, and I can't wait to see what we discover during my career and for generations to come.
We were learning a little bit about Zena Cardman there, who studied at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. Let's rejoin NASA and SpaceX's live coverage here on WCNC and WCNC Plus as we count down to launch from Kennedy Space Center.
This is also going to be our last landing at LZ-1 today. So lots of different launch pads, landing sites, staging areas, lots of things in play. But the best news is that both Dragon and Falcon 9 continue to be healthy. You heard us wrap up Stage 2 RP-1 loading just after T-minus 20 minutes, and Stage 2 liquid oxygen will begin here at about, or has begun already, excuse me. We've also heard that call out that the launch escape system is armed. Of course, the launch escape system, which we discussed in more detail yesterday, is designed to propel Dragon away from Falcon 9 in the unlikely event of an emergency during launch. We've also heard from the Eastern Range, which is monitoring keep-out zones among other key flight requirements today. They're continuing to report no issues, and they are go to support today's launch, weather depending. So again, as you just heard, weather is a watch item. We're now tracking a 60% chance of violation at our target liftoff time, with isolated showers in the staging area and some clouds building right over the launch pad. You are actually seeing them continue to grow on your screen right now. For now, though, we are go for the 6th mission of Dragon Endeavour, and I want to hand it back over to Sandra for a status update from Houston. Sandra?
Thanks, Ronnie. Back here in the International Space Station Flight Control Room at NASA's Johnson Space Center in Houston, teams are continuing to work around the clock to monitor activities aboard the orbital outpost. Leading the team inside the room today is NASA Flight Director Anthony Varia. The team in Mission Control Houston, the team in Hawthorne, and the astronauts aboard the space station will track the autonomous docking of Dragon Endeavour when they enter joint operations. This will happen when the spacecraft enters the approach ellipsoid, which is the invisible boundary, stretching 4 by 2 by 2 kilometers that helps us monitor all arriving and departing spacecraft. It's essentially the neighborhood of the International Space Station. Once docked, crew members in both Dragon and aboard the International Space Station will perform a series of leak checks, then work to open the spacecraft's hatch for Crew-11 to float into the space station and begin their stay. We anticipate that the hatch will be opened about an hour and a half after docking occurs, and when they enter the orbital outpost, Crew-11 will be greeted by the rest of their Expedition 73 crew and will come together for some opening remarks. For now, that's going to be all for us today here in Mission Control as the anticipation builds for launch in less than 13 minutes now. So how's it looking on the Space Coast, Daryl?
Well, Sandra, we wish it was looking better. We've just had a downgrade in the weather forecast from 60% go to only 40% go. The launch weather officer informing us that conditions are ripe, and we have even seen the development of cumulus clouds in the area, some that could trigger lightning if a rocket went through them. So this is a very high watch item at this moment, Nick.
Yeah, they're watching it to everybody is focused on crew safety at this point, making sure that we make the right call. But there's a chance, and I'll stay positive.
You've been positive. I appreciate that about you. You've done that throughout the broadcast. Here's a look from our helicopter flying over the spaceport right now. And this is the formation of the clouds that is a concern because it is so humid out right now. And we've got a sea breeze that is flowing over the warm land. It is just creating this convection around the spaceport. In fact, we are also expecting to go into a Phase 1 lightning alert, which I hate to say it, but just before we scrubbed yesterday, Dick, that Phase 1 lightning alert went into effect. So things are starting to stack up against us weather-wise. But nonetheless, it's at this point, because this is a fully automated fueling sequence, it behooves us to just continue to march to see if anything might just clear at the end.
Yeah, so there's been nothing that happened up to this point to stop the countdown. So proceed to T-0, and if the timing works out and the weather hasn't built to a significant enough level and it's safe to go, then let's go.
Absolutely, and it is an instantaneous window. So we are launching at 11:43 and 42 seconds. So it is literally the weather at that second that matters. And that's where we hope to see some type of positivity in that moment. But it's certainly something that all eyes are on around the Space Coast to see if this rocket is going to go today. In just about 20 seconds, we are going to hear from Zena Cardman, and she's going to say some words.
Good morning, everybody. You are watching WCNC Charlotte here. I'm Jane Monreal. We are having some technical difficulties in our main studio. That's why we're here in the Live Impact studio right now. We're going to bring you the news as we do midday every day here. You are watching live right now NASA's coverage of the launch as they are getting ready to launch the SpaceX Crew-11 to the International Space Station. As you can see there, that the astronauts are in place, and it is scheduled for 11:38. So we are T-30 for a launch here from Florida, marking a second attempt to the International Space Station this morning. They tried yesterday afternoon at 12:09, about a minute just before rockets were to blast. They had to scrub it due to a couple of clouds, nice puffy clouds there over the coastal area of Florida, just out of Orlando. But today's crew is from, of course, the U.S. We have someone from Japan and a cosmonaut, James, who is our resident everything aeronautical, astronomical expert here.
That's flattering, Jane.
James, what can you add to this? What can we say?
So the commander of today's mission is someone who calls Virginia home. Her name is Zena Cardman, but she studied at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill.
That's right.
And she actually introduced herself to the NASA TV audience, Jane, a little earlier this morning, and we can actually roll that here and learn a little bit more about someone with some local ties to the Carolinas as we continue this countdown here with 8 minutes to go.
All right, let's go for it.
I think in a lot of ways, science and exploration is just innate to us as human beings. That's why toddlers ask so many why questions. It's just part of who we are. In many ways, I think trying to explore space generates solutions to problems that we didn't even know we had.
My name is Zena Cardman, and I am the commander of NASA's SpaceX Crew-11 mission to the International Space Station.
I was born in Champaign-Urbana, Illinois, but grew up in Williamsburg, Virginia. I grew up almost like an only child. I have 2 older brothers, but the younger of the 2 actually went off to college when I was 5 years old. And so I learned to play in my backyard a lot, play with friends, use my imagination, and explore the natural world around me. I studied biology as an undergraduate student. This is largely because I had a really excellent high school biology teacher who inspired me to pursue research on my own, even as a high school student. But while I was at college, I also got to know microbiology. I got to know geosciences and chemistry. I wound up doing a lot of research in an oceanography marine sciences department and studying in remote locations like Antarctica. I also, while I was an undergraduate, became a creative writing minor, and I've always really valued that chance to study the creative side of my brain and explore our natural world through that side as well. I love being an astronaut right now because there are many pathways to get to the International Space Station. We spend long duration periods, so many months long, living and working on board that space station, and it's really focused on research. A lot of that research is on our home planet, and a lot of that research is on us as human subjects. I'm very excited to be actually a test subject for a lot of the medical research that we're doing on board the ISS. I've signed up for a very large, all-encompassing medical study called CIPHER, and this, I think, is going to be critical as we start thinking about going for longer durations and farther places like the Moon and Mars. My role as commander is to bring out the best in my crewmates from the moment we start training till the moment we get back to Earth and then some. And so I'm always thinking about that larger mission overview and how my crewmates are doing and what we can do for each other. Spaceflight, by definition, requires collaboration and requires more than one person, and the chance to be part of something much larger than myself has been humbling and inspiring and deeply fulfilling. Even since I was a child, looking up at the stars, looking up at the cosmos is inspiring. It helps me answer questions like, what are we doing here? Who are we? Where are we? I don't think we grow if we don't challenge ourselves. I think that's true for myself, it's true for teams, and it's true for us as a society and as a species. We have to take some risks, we have to challenge ourselves in order to push ourselves, and I can't wait to see what we discover during my career and for generations to come.
And it appears that our main studio is back up and running. We will throw to them just after the break. Also want to let you know that the launch happening in T-minus 5 minutes is being carried on our secondary channel on WCNC+. Either way, we'll see you back here on WCNC Charlotte.
So next up in the countdown, the transporter erector, or TE, will begin to retract from Falcon 9. That is the large truss structure you see there standing next to the rocket. It's hinged at the base and connected to the launch mount beneath the first stage. First, the clamps around the second stage will begin to
Falcon
open.
9 tanks are pressing for strong back retract.
And we're hearing good callouts.
Dragon is in, configure for terminal count.
And we're continuing to hear great callouts over the nets. Then the TE will begin to pivot back, slowly swinging away from the rocket, and it will reach full recline in just about a minute.
Strong back retract has started.
And we are just beginning that strong back retraction process. It's called the strong back. It's also called the TE, or transporter erector. Same structure, different name. The TE does a lot more than just lean. It rolls Falcon 9 out to the pad, raises it vertical, and stays connected through the final seconds. It provides fuel, power, telemetry, and command connections between ground systems and the rocket. Those clamps at the top help stabilize the second stage during fueling, and they also help prevent movement in high winds. And once they open, which you can see on your screen, they are slowly pulling away. And once they open fully, the rocket is fully free at the top.
Propellant continues to be loaded late here in the countdown as we're approaching 3 minutes and 30 seconds. We're continuing to keep an eye on the weather, and that's going to be the biggest thing as everything continues to march towards that liftoff timeline. But you can see there the strong back starting to move ever so slowly away from the rocket. The clamp arms are open, and you also see those white clouds starting to billow off the rocket itself. Those are perfectly normal as it's the coolness of the propellant on board is mixing with that warm Florida air, and that's what causes that boil off, and that you heard Nick talk about it earlier when you have that steam come off the rocket, so it looks like a lot of clouds billowing off it as well. But approaching the T-minus 3 minute mark, and that's when
Stage 1 lock load complete.
And that's what I was about to say, is that you're going to hear that liquid oxygen load be complete. So everything is primed and pretty much ready to go. And you'll see, again, those white clouds of vapor and a great view of the entire rocket as we continue to build closer to launch. And, of course, liquid oxygen, super chilled. So a little bit
terminal count and on internal power.
Boils off in that warm Florida air. And now, load complete. We're on internal power. And we're also going to hear gas closeouts are going to start to begin as well. And then everything will get vented overboard through the umbilicals and strong back, and you may hear some of that venting noise come in soon.
So LOX is still loading for approximately another 20 seconds on stage 2, and once that is complete, we'll vent down the TE, which will produce a white cloud off the side of the rocket, which is normal and expected, just as Joseph had mentioned. And once LOX load is fully complete, that will mean that there are 1 million pounds of propellant loaded onto Falcon 9, which will be RP1 and liquid oxygen. So that call out coming up.
Stage 2 lock load complete.
Right there.
So we just heard that confirmation of stage 2 liquid oxygen now complete, as we are now 1 minute and 50 seconds away from launch. We'll also hear that the gas closeouts have started, so we can expect loud venting.
Dragon is in auto idle.
You heard the call for auto idle. That puts the rocket in a state that the flight computers understand before it takes over, making sure that transition to the final countdown is smooth and that all flight computers on board are in sync.
Ground gas closeouts, expect loud venting.
Configured for launch, and there's the closeouts we've been talking about and the venting that will be shortly followed. One minute and 10 seconds to liftoff of NASA SpaceX Crew-11.
FTS is armed. Falcon 9 is in startup and is now controlling. Dragon is in countdown.
Flight computers switching to countdown mode now.
Dragon, SpaceX, go for launch.
SpaceX, Dragon, go for launch.
T-minus 30 seconds. You're watching live launch coverage from Live Impact News on WCNC+.
Seconds. T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition. Ignition's full power and liftoff. Go Falcon, go NASA, go Crew-11.
Together we rise as NASA's SpaceX Crew-11 heads up to the International Space Station.
Vehicles pitching down range.
1.7 million pounds of
Stage 1
thrust.
propulsion is nominal.
Propelling Falcon 9 as the vehicle pitching down range and making its way up the East Coast, and will soon join Expedition 73 aboard the orbiting laboratory. So far, getting good callouts on that first stage performance.
We are now T plus 35 seconds into the Crew-11 mission on board Dragon and Falcon 9. The Falcon 9 engines
Stage 1 throttle down.
Are throttling down to help
Power and telemetry are nominal.
To help pass through the period of max Q, or maximum aerodynamic pressure on the vehicle during ascent.
Max Q.
We just had max Q right there.
Falcon 9 is supersonic.
1 minute, 9 seconds into what is a little bit more
Stage
less
one,
than
throttle up.
a 9-minute flight uphill as Dragon continuing.
Stage 1 Bravo.
Copy. 1 Bravo.
And that 1 Bravo, again, that's the abort zone, that last abort zone for stage 1 if necessary. The crew already pulling over 2 Gs. And next, we're going to have a couple of events happen in rapid succession. We'll be getting ready for the second stage to warm up and have this second stage MVAC chill. And then we'll also have MECA, or main engine cutoff, where the 9 engines on the first stage will cut off ahead of the first and second stages. Will then be separating from one another. And then the single Merlin vacuum engine on the second stage will ignite and continue to carry Crew-11 to orbit, while the first stage begins its journey back to Earth, as we're now 1 minute and 56 seconds into today's flight.
The 9 Merlin engines are starting to throttle down and are standing by for MECA, or main engine cutoff.
MVAC chill has started.
And we just heard that call out for MVAC chill. And coming up in under 20 seconds, we have 5 events happening back to back. MECA,
Stage 1 throttle down.
stage separation, stage 1 flip, SES1, and the start of boost back burn. It's going to be pretty quick, so keep a close eye on the action and the mission event
Main engine cutoff.
tracker at the bottom of your screen.
Main engine cutoff.
Stage 2 Alpha.
Stage separation confirmed.
2 Alpha. MVAC ignition.
And there you see stage 1 pulling away, ignition of the lone Merlin vacuum engine for stage 2. And again, those happening in quick succession as we continue to get great views of that Florida coastline and the eastern seaboard there, as Crew-11 continuing its path to orbit, now approaching 3 minutes into today's flight. Still a little ways to go, about 6 minutes left, as they continue to climb their way up and eventually track down the International Space Station. And there, great see, you see the Merlin vacuum engine, the second stage on the right-hand side, and great views of the first stage that's making its return to Earth on the left.
You're watching live launch coverage here on Live Impact News from WCNC Plus. As you can see, we just had a successful launch of NASA SpaceX Crew-11 from the Kennedy Space Center, now making their journey towards the International Space Station. I wanted to mention, as we've been watching these live feeds, as those rocket boosters return to Earth, this is something that SpaceX has perfected over the course of the last 10 years. And so what has become almost a norm now, really only a decade or so old, and even the spacecraft itself today, the Dragon capsule that the crew is flying on, has flown multiple times to space, and that is something that this new era of space flight, ever since the space shuttle retired, has really been perfected here by private industry, the reuse of these materials. You know, that was something that was ushered in by the space shuttle generation, reusing those vessels to get up to space multiple times, those space shuttles. But now with SpaceX as a private vendor, they've really perfected this to the point where even the engines here in the booster rockets are able to be reused with so many successful landings of these booster rockets. So we're continuing to watch these live images coming to us here as the crew continues up into orbit. What you're watching on the left-hand side of your screen is the booster rocket beginning its descent. And you will still see flames and smoke coming out from the bottom of that rocket. Even though that is there, it's actually there to slow the rocket down. It won't be getting enough propellant or push to send it back up into space, but it'll kind of act as a counter to gravity to try to slow it down as it makes its way back down towards Earth. Let's listen back in now to SpaceX and NASA coverage as we continue to monitor the launch of NASA's SpaceX Crew-11 on Live Impact News from WCNC Plus.
On that left-hand side, and we'll also get continued guidance and navigation call-outs from the control officers here in SpaceX. Dragon is pointed in the right direction and continuing its flight. And again, that second stage going to continue firing until close to that 9-minute mark into flight, and accelerating Dragon to more than 17,000 miles per hour and placing the crew in orbit. And you'll hear good orbital insertion would be that call out. There's the single Merlin vacuum engine that can produce over 220,000
SpaceX nominal trajectory.
pounds of thrust on that nominal trajectory you're hearing right now.
Copy.
and into the vacuum of space. Now approaching 6 minutes into today's flight, about 2 minutes and 40 plus seconds remaining.
We are coming up on the entry burn, which is just under 30 seconds from now. And so you'll see the first stage's center Merlin engine reignite as it comes back down to Earth. And after that, we will be approaching.
Entry burn startup.
And there's the beginning of entry burn right there. Again, this is the second of 3 burns to return the booster to landing zone 1.
Burn shutdown.
We just made it through entry burn.
And you're getting some great views, too, on that Stage 1's return to the Florida coastline. Again, landing at landing zone 1. While on the right-hand side, the second stage. And that Merlin vacuum engine continuing to propel Crew-11.
Dragon, SpaceX, nominal trajectory.
Into orbit. And
Dragon copies.
And again, great. And now with about 2 minutes left of powered flight remaining, still receiving those great calls from the crew on the ground, and we're getting those relays from Crew-11 Commander Zena Cardman.
Stage 1 transonic.
We are now very quickly approaching the start of our landing burn, where 3 engines 1, 5, and 9, will relight to help slow the vehicle down just before it touches down on landing zone 1. We should hopefully have some great tracking shots of that.
Stage 1 landing burn. Stage 2 FTS has saved. Stage 1 landing leg deploy.
Fantastic return there of the Stage 1 booster.
Just completing our final plan landing at LV1.
Another
So a successful landing of the first stage booster as we continue to follow along with a little less now than 1 minute of powered flight of the second stage. And you'll hear the call out SECO, or second engine cutoff, is great view there, glowing orange with the Earth eclipsing right around that Merlin vacuum engine, and everything continuing to perform nominally for NASA SpaceX Crew-11.
Terminal guidance.
About 20 more seconds remaining of powered flight, and we'll get those call outs here shortly as everything continuing.
Shannon.
Copy, Shannon.
And there's the great call out for Shannon we talked about earlier, that last abort zone, if necessary, where they can land off the coast of Shannon, Ireland.
SECO.
There we just heard that good call out for SECO, or second engine cutoff. Coming up next will be stage separation.
Dragon, SpaceX, nominal orbit insertion.
And that's the great call you want to hear.
Copies.
A good look inside the trunk there as you're looking for that separation, but you wanted to hear that nominal orbital insertion as Crew-11 now has reached microgravity.
So now we'll continue to coast for a little bit after SECO to allow rates and motion from the burn to settle out. Right now we have a great view on our screen of the Dragon heat shield, actually, which is made up of similar materials. And there we have that Dragon and stage 2 separation as we see Dragon coast into its orbit.
And a wonderful view there is Dragon Endeavour with Crew-11 on board. Safe.
Dragon separation confirmed.
And safe and...
Dragon, Chief Engineer on Dragon to ground. Zena, Mike, Kimya, Oleg, welcome to orbit. On behalf of the entire Falcon team, we thank you for flying with Falcon today and wish you a great mission. Dragon will take you from here. Over to Launch Director for a few words.
On behalf of the launch team, it's been an absolute honor working with you towards launch today. We wish you well on the rest of your mission, and we will be awaiting your safe return. Godspeed Endeavour, Godspeed Crew-11, and thanks for flying SpaceX.
SpaceX, Dragon, I have no emotion but joy right now. That was absolutely transcendent. Ride of a lifetime. Thank
you. This has been an incredible honor, and it's my privilege now to pass us along to Mike for some additional words.
Boy, it's great to be back in orbit again. Thank you to SpaceX and NASA to get us here. What a ride. And Zena and Oleg, let me be the second to welcome you to your first orbit around beautiful planet Earth. Kimya-san, Okayeri Nasai, welcome back. And to the ISS Expedition 73 team, the crew on board and our friends in MCC, we're on our way. Over to you, Kimya-san.
Okay. Thank you very much for everything. スパシバワンボイショーへありがとうございます。日本の皆さん、私も10年ぶりに宇宙に帰ってきました。ISS でしっかりと任務を果たして一等星のように輝いて、日本の素晴らしいところを世界中の人に知っていただきたいと思います。ありがとうございます。передаю Олег-сан, пожалуйста.
Спасибо, Kimya-san. Thank you very much. Arigato gozaimasu. And спасибо всем. I'd like for the beginning to say thank you very much, Roscosmos, SpaceX, and NASA for this unique opportunity to be here with my great crew. Дорогие друзья, находясь на космическом корабле и облетая нашу родную планету, я испытываю неописуемое счастье и восторг. Хочу выразить слова благодарности всей нашей стране, Соединенным Штатам Америки и России за эту уникальную возможность, а также Роскосмосу. Хочу выразить слова благодарности своей школе, в которой я учился, номер 103 в городе Челябинске, выразить благодарность Краснодарскому высшему военному авиационному училищу летчиков и 22-му гвардейскому истребительному авиационному полку, а также сотрудникам Центра подготовки космонавтов, кто искренне верил и болел за эту идею отправить меня в космос. Обещаю выполнить все поставленные передо мной задачи на отлично. Ура!
Crew-11, we copy all of your words. We are very excited for you to have reached orbit, and we will now proceed with getting you to the International Space Station. You have approximately 3 minutes left in this ground station pass if you'd like to introduce your zero-G indicator.
Copy all, Tremaine. Thank you so much. We'll get out our 5th crew member here in just a moment. This zero-G indicator honors a shared memory with our lead trainer, Paul Weiss. For all the mentors and team members who got us here through sacrifice of time and dedication, I hope we made you proud today. Thank you so much.
You've been watching live launch coverage of NASA SpaceX Crew-11 from Live Impact News and WCNC Plus. We're about 14 minutes since the liftoff from Kennedy Space Center, and you're looking live
great words there from
as
all
the crew continues to complete their first orbit around their planet. They're going to do several of these over the course of many hours on their way up to the International Space Station. They mentioned a 5th crew member, and that is probably some sort of stuffed animal that they brought with them. It's a gravity indicator that flies around inside the vessel. We have seen it at times be Snoopy or other stuffed animals, and I didn't see it on the stream. They seemed to try to indicate they were going to show it to us, but as we can see here on the screen, we've switched over to a map view because as the crew does orbits around the planet, slowly rising higher and higher up in order to meet the altitude of the International Space Station, they will come and go from satellite reception and ground station reception on the ground. So I didn't see what their gravity indicator was yet, but that is certainly something we will keep a close eye on. As you've been watching this over the course of the last 15 minutes or so, what a relief probably for the crew and the many supporting staff that this second launch attempt from Kennedy Space Center was successful following yesterday's weather scrub. Let's take you back over now and hear the closing thoughts from NASA and SpaceX as they continue their commentary of the launch of Crew-11.
And we'll continue to get those call-outs and hear about the nose cone again. Right now, currently opening. The hooks have been opening, and they were doing so during the great words from the crew. So we'll continue to monitor and do a Dragon as it went up the eastern seaboard, and we had a view for a moment there as, again, passing over ground stations And that's what provides us the great views that you've been seeing throughout today's broadcast inside the Dragon spacecraft. And there's a great look at that single Merlin vacuum engine that helped propel Crew-11 into orbit. And a great view of looking outward across the arch of the Earth.
Despite all of the weather issues we were having on ground leading up to launch, we seem to be having some really clear, amazing views in space today.
And now 16 and a half minutes into flight, you're right. It was threading the needle, but they were able to get up and above the clouds. And even watching that ascent for stage one was wonderful to see them bypass those clouds that we were talking about a lot today. But again, as we await for further views inside the Dragon spacecraft and from their pursuit, Crew-11 to the International Space Station, we're now standing by for nose cone deploy as the team on the ground in Hawthorne, California, right there inside SpaceX Mission Control, actively monitoring all of those systems. You mentioned the Eclipse system inside, and once everything checks the appropriate boxes, then Crew-11 can doff or get out of their spacesuits, those new IVA suit for Mike Fink and company. And then from there, it's going to be about a 16-hour ride to the International Space Station, and that's where they will link up with the orbiting laboratory and the 7 current residents on there. Crew-10 is currently on board, as well as Soyuz MS-27 with NASA astronaut Johnny Kim, and they'll bring that 7 to a team of 11, hopefully in the early morning hours coming up tomorrow. So we continue to stand by, approaching 18 minutes into today's flight.
We are just waiting confirmation that the nose cone is fully deployed, but all hooks are open. We should be hearing that confirmation hopefully within the next minute or so. And hopefully we'll also have great views of that nose cone deploy.
And that's a great view on the right-hand side of the International Space Station Flight Control Room in Houston, Texas, at NASA's Johnson Space Center, where we got updates throughout the day today from Sandra Jones as the International Space Station monitoring today's flight and the ascent of NASA SpaceX Crew-11. And they pulled goal earlier on as they're ready to receive Dragon. And we just received confirmation that the nose cone has completely opened and deployed. So great news, as again, all those checkouts continuing to happen for Crew-11 after a successful on-time liftoff today. And they were able to get past the clouds, the weather that we've been monitoring, and a successful first stage and second stage performance to propel them into orbit. Crew-11 is comprised of NASA astronauts Zena Cardman and Mike Fink, along with JAXA astronaut Kimia Ewing and Roscosmos cosmonaut Oleg Platonov. And they are now safely in orbit following that approximately 9-minute ride after liftoff today from NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida. The crew now, as mentioned, has a little bit about a 16-hour journey before they reach their destination.
Dragon SpaceX, we see a nominal nose cone opening at TCS and forward bulkhead to Draco checkouts.
Great call out right there.
Dragon copies all. Good news.
And that's what we were waiting for there, was that call up to crew.
Looking forward in the timeline, you have your first burn up on your forward view. That's the phase burn in approximately 25 minutes. We will also be monitoring the stage 2 deorbit to give you the go for suit doffing, and we're expecting that at T plus 45 minutes.
Dragon copies. We'll be monitoring, and T plus 45 approximately for suit doffing. We're with you in the timeline.
Great conversations there with the team on the ground, and there they are, Crew-11. Happy as can be in orbit now, and they have a 16-hour journey before they reach their destination, the International Space Station, as docking currently targeted for tomorrow morning, Saturday, August 2nd at 3 a.m. Eastern Time, 12 a.m. Pacific, to the space-facing port of the station's Harmony module. Now, between now and then, Dragon will perform a series of burns as it catches up to the space station. And that first burn you heard him talking about